our bodies have physiological and differences and psychological and physical differences. For instance, our noses are bigger because evolution has showed us that we can cool our bodies down quicker because of the arid and the humid and the hot temperatures that we evolved in. That's why our noses are bigger. Our skin is darker, and it helps to absorb vitamins from the sunlight that we need to survive. It keeps us from sunburning as easily. On the flip side of that, there are, I think, mental differences as well between each race of people.
None.
And this is something that's going to be on, a really touchy subject, but
None.
it says what you say, right? And so I want to say this: are Black women wrong for saying what they're saying?
Okay,
And
let me
don't feel to do this? Go ahead.
There is nothing mentally wrong with the Black mentality. Okay, let me explain what the Greeks told everybody before they created the word phenotype. You got to remember, Rome didn't create that term. The Greeks did. Mm-hmm. The Greeks were such a frail, thin people. They were scared all the time. Their cousins, the Romans, fell out with them because really they are Macedonians. They're not even really Greeks, but that's another show. But they went to Egypt to get knowledge, and they realized one thing: we need to master writing and being historians. And we'll tell the Rome what their history is, and we'll tell Egypt what their history is, and we'll be masters at that. So what ended up happening? France took that same philosophy. Spain later took that same philosophy. Rome took, and everybody got to be masters of storytelling to the children, where white always wins, and outthinking others. When you look at aristocrats, they all outthink each other. Imagine the Black person who got muscles everywhere, who can run. He doesn't have time to think because physicality gets him everything. He doesn't have a scare type of issue. He comes from empires. He has the same problem that China has, if you really look at it. China has been a dynasty so long under the Song dynasty, they never really had to develop anything until the Mongolians tried to kill them, their cousins. Now we better start developing some techniques. So see, Africa's problem is they've never been put in a position to know what kryptonite is, let alone green kryptonite.
It's interesting. That's a really interesting point. Really well said. Really quickly, we'll continue on that on another stream for sure. And because you brought up a whole bunch of questions and I've taken notes on that, we'll continue on. I'm going to go ahead and go back to this Kevin Samuels situation. But Mr. Research, you have so many fascinating points that I just don't think about. So by all means, stay and stick around. And I know you're familiar with the manosphere and everything of that nature. So I want your input on these situations as well. And it's in regards to Kevin Samuels' ownership. Now, I'm going to show y'all something. This is the high value man that everybody claims Kevin Samuels to be, the high value image consultant, right? So I want to show you something. This is Kevin Samuels' website. All right. So we are here. Now, what's interesting is that the picture that you see in front of you is a picture that is not Kevin Samuels' store. This looks to be, I don't know, a very high-end clothing store, boutique type thing. But this is not Kevin Samuels' store whatsoever. It's a fairly simple website. Take note of the not secure panel at the top left here. Not secure panel. That means that if you do input your credit card information, there could be something that happens to your information because it is not encrypted. You can go ahead and watch a video on what this website is about. The video is unavailable. This is on Kevin Samuels' actual website right now. What high-value businessman do you know of on the front page of their website that is not encrypted with Cloudflare or anything, doesn't have a video that can play? I make nothing a year, and yet I can have a website that has a video that plays on the front page. This is not rocket science here, people. To be an image consultant and then to have the image of your website in a wreck is a complete contradiction to quote unquote high value. Did you want to say something, Mr. Research? My apologies. Okay, my apologies. I thought you said something. Maybe you didn't. So we'll scroll down. I don't know if this video plays, but let's check out this video right here. Looks like it's one of his YouTube videos. All right, world's 8 best fragrances. We're not going to play that. That's the first video out of 4 in relations to Kevin Samuels' business that has actually worked. Now, keep in mind, his other websites that were linked to the news articles that I showed you beforehand were completely out of operation. Let's check out the personal tab. Let's just explore this website a little bit. Too busy to meet in person? Zoom US consultation is a great way for a busy executive, blah, 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 blah. If you want to donate, you can donate here. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's nothing about this website that shows the value that he's added to anybody's fashion choices. There's nothing about this website that gives any of his clients. There's no reviews from clients. There's nothing other than pictures of him dressed well. And he dresses well. I'm not going to lie, he can dress well. I'm not saying he might not be a great fashioneer for you, but there's no proof. Same thing that a lot of you are claiming black women have no proof of, which is black men not owning businesses, which is black men not being the leaders of their community. When in reality, there's proof to all of that. But once again, the blind fanatics are leading themselves right off of the cliff, hanging by Kevin Samuels' coattail. I don't mean that Kevin Samuels is leading them off of the cliff, but I mean that they follow each other like sheep. And they're just pushing and pushing and pushing. And all of a sudden, when they're at the edge of the cliff, they don't even know it because the crowd that's behind them pushing them is steady pushing them and pushing them and pushing. And then next thing you know, you're falling off the edge of the cliff because of the fanatics behind you claiming to know exactly where they need to go. Now, I'm going to address, since a lot of people have joined the stream, they might not have caught the beginning of this, a website that wrote articles about Kevin Samuels. And we'll make this quick, and then Mr. Research, I'll get your thoughts on this. This is a website, Uncovering Oklahoma. Kevin Samuels is from Oklahoma. It looks like he's taking a picture in yet another storefront, which he doesn't own. And keep in mind, guys, it doesn't cost much to get a ping pong table, a $600 storefront, and 20 pairs of shoes and 10 suits to go behind you. That's not an expensive ordeal by any means when you claim to be a high-value man such as Kevin Samuels claims to be. More unavailable videos on this site. This was written in 2016, so I understand maybe the videos have just been privatized or removed. But the links on these videos or on this site as well don't work. And actually, I have the complete wrong website, so forgive me and my dustiness. I can't click the links for you to show you that the links don't work because I already closed out the tab. Just take my word for it. The links didn't work. So we have a bunch of broken links. We have a storefront, which looks like a home. I'll show that again. Now, the guy who just left, Static, I think his name was, he says, well, you know what? I understand some people have a storefront that's their home address. Some people have it because it can, I don't know, whatever it might be. There's no high value business that's going to include the Google ad for their business under a house address. That's not what high value people do. And I'm not trying to dox anybody. Once again, sharing at YouTube, do not ban me. I don't know who stays at this address listed here, but it's supposed to be a business. And so I'm researching for business purposes, not to dox where Kevin stays. So people don't go pulling up to his house and whatever trying to find Kevin. But this is listed on Google. Life and Style by Kevin Samuels. 3 out of 5-star review. Let's see if the website works. Okay, so the website takes you to the site that we've been to before. There's a lot of holes in this story, guys. There's a lot of holes in this story. This isn't how businesses are operated. And the first thing that Kevin Samuels throws out and throws to these women's faces is that I'm a fashion consultant. I know how much you're supposed to weigh. I know what you're supposed to look like. I know this and I know that. Last point to this, and then I'll get your input, Mr. Fantastic. We're gonna go right back to the page that
Mr.
we were just
Research,
looking at
Mr.
because
Research, Mr. Research.
oh, go ahead.
No,
Oh,
you
Mr.
call me.
Research. Oh, Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Forgive me, bro. God
Please.
Almighty. That's like this right there I just gave to you. Jesus. Thank you, Mr. Research. I'm so used to being on Jessica X's stream and seeing Mr. Fantastic get on there and rant and rave, and
He has a total different energy. I'll say this the same way I said to him. I love his brain, but he has to produce as
right.
best as he talks. But please
Yes.
continue, because I'm ready to defend these talking points that you put out.
Definitely. Last thing. This looks to be another image consultant that popped up under Kevin Samuel's ad. Now, I'm not knocking small businesses. I understand that everybody has to start somewhere. This image consultant doesn't even have an address on there. But what they do have in comparison is proof of what they do. It looks like it's white owned, black owned. I'm not sure exactly who owns it, but there's proof of what they do. They have actual clients, and this is the picture I was referring to, which they show a lady who they've transformed here in their business details, in their business photos. They have pictures. They have fashion shows. So these are fashion or image consultants. Mind you, all black women supporting each other. And that's one thing that I will say. Black women support each other much more than black men do. Regardless of not whether you want to accept that, black women will stick together much more than black men will. Especially
I have a point on that
business tip. Go ahead, Mr. Research.
All right, so you said quite a few things. I've been we're ready to get in, so let's run down through them. Respectfully, and I say this out of love, I'm willing to be wrong, HT.
Sure.
On my show, I say all the time, when I give the mic up to anybody on my panel, show me where I got it wrong. Most people can't, but you're invited to come over there as well and hang with my guys and see if you can compete on that level. So with that said, let me ask a cross-referencing question just to make sure that you're part of the answer that I'm about to give. Does a does a person in chiropractic who's a licensed doctor have to have a brick and mortar place?
No.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your honesty. Does a makeup artist have to have a place?
No.
Can the makeup artist list their home under a business law? Can they list their home and use their home as a business tax write-off?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for understanding that. So respectfully, with all love, I try to say to people, a lot of people don't understand stuff on this level. Here's where you got it right. So before I talk to you to the negatives, let me be fair and tell you where you got it right.
Sure.
The inconsistency of the videos is an issue of professionalism. I'll give you that. Okay. No way around it. Even my site is not currently up, my event business, because I don't really need for my event business site to be up to generate what I need to generate. But you do have a point on professionalism, which is in conjunction with value. I'll give you that as well. So that point is valid. The storefront, you just proved my point. He doesn't have to own a store, because his job is to go around to certain people, whether they're actors, whether they're Pepsi Cola, whether they're insecure white guys, insecure Filipino guys. He has created whatever demographic he has created. And I'm talking about his business pattern. I'm not talking about him personally. Like I said, he can have skeletons in the closet. I don't know. But his business pattern does not have to have none of that. When you are known or have connections, a lot of stuff you get is word of mouth. I had an interview yesterday. I already work, but I had an interview yesterday because I have 5 certifications. For the past 4 years, I've never had to fill out an application because people seek me out. Now, when I tell that to people, it sounds strange. It sounds like I'm lying. So there are things that Kevin might be doing or having access to that the average person who doesn't operate on this level would find as weird. I totally get it. When I used to be in the hood, I would have thought the same thing too. But the reality is, he does not have to hold the site up. He does not have to have a storefront. But let me prove another point of yours, which makes sense. He should have clients on the platform as a model of success story. I took a person from this and made them to that. But then you come into the part of some of your clients may not be agreeable to be part of that. And that's when you, proving your point again, you would hire or give somebody a free consultation as long as they sign off the rights to show their face. Now, what you may not know, there's a guy called C Boogie, and this is because you're a new person, you may not know this. There's a guy called C Boogie in the quote unquote boyosphere. C Boogie did a makeover with Kevin, and everybody who's been in the boyosphere for a long time knows that. So he has proof of doing it. It just may not be appearing there. Only the people who really know is the people who pay him and the people in the boyosphere. So let me agree with you on those 2 points, but disagree with you on those 3 points, because you don't have to have that. The thing about the women sticking together, I absolutely agree. But look what we do as Black men going all the way back to the 70s. And this is something UHT tend to omit. Black grandfathers, great grandfathers have been helping Black women long before they got the right to vote. I know dudes who will help a stranger Black woman before he helped his own son. In return, women don't reach back to help Black boys. They only help Black girls. Now, I propose, like I tell guys all the time, we need to go back to this Black patriot thing where we put sons first and we let these independent women do what they do. I don't hate women. I just treat you just like you say you are. You're independent, you're strong, you don't need my help, you don't need my son's help. Let me focus on my son and my daughter. You need to do those things as a Black man, because our women have shown once we help them rise, they will forget the Black community. What if those Black women tell Ice Cube, we're not part of the Black community, we have our own thing? When you got that type of behavior, it's problematic. The microphone back to you, HT.
Yeah, so I could definitely understand a lot of what you said. I'll try and address it in the same chronological order of what you said it in. 1 second. A donation link. Guys, if you enjoy the show, please donate, even if it's $1 to the PayPal. Just show that you contribute and that you support the show so we can grow on, do bigger and better things, and make this broadcast more professional. I'd really appreciate it. If you're watching on the playback, the links will be in the description box below. And addressing what you said, I think that, and I forget what I was going to say because I put the link up. I'm so one track minded.
Thinking about that money, dog.
I'm so no. It's because my IQ is so low. What was I going to say? Let me see.
First thing I talked about was the storefront. I did agree.
Okay, cool. All right. So thank you, Mr. Research. The problem I have with the storefront argument is this, and I've acknowledged that, yes, I understand that if you're a small business, you're starting out, or maybe you're a business that doesn't necessarily need a storefront, then you don't have to have one. But the fact of the matter is that in Oklahoma, having a image type office space that you could rent out and make it look really boutique and chic and lush and trendy and stylish, I mean, we're talking about no more than, and even if you're in Oklahoma City, I've been to Oklahoma. There's nothing in Oklahoma. It's the most barren state I've ever seen in my life. My sister went to OU for years, and I used to drop her off at Oklahoma. And it was not until you get to Oklahoma City where there's any sort of civilization or life, period, or even maybe like Norman, Oklahoma. Other than that, it's barren. It would cost you no more than $500 to $700 or $800 on the high end to rent out an office space or a location that you could dress up as a nice little consultation area. It just doesn't come across professional. I'll put it to you this way: if I was going to get consulted, I wouldn't want to meet somebody at their house. I just wouldn't. I don't know if anybody else can admit that or not, but I wouldn't think that that's high value per se. And it's something that one of my viewers said, one of my subscribers said on another stream, is that when Black people do have businesses, we tend to half-ass them a lot of the time. We tend to only go halfway, right? And so we leave this lack of professionalism just blatantly showing. It costs nothing to get you a couple suits or to hang even a couple of your suits on a rack, to get some nice little racks with wheels on them, get some wallpaper, nice gray colors and pure white LED lights, and make a nice little display. That costs nothing, especially for.
I want to put back a little bit because
Sure.
here's something again you may not realize. Have you ever heard of We Office?
A We Office?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was texting somebody. No, what is the We Office?
A We Office is a community office. A community office is another word for it. I can do like let's take this for, and again, this is just defending the possibility of his marketing plan and how he does it. Not him personally. Like I said, he can have skeletons. It can be all BS. I'm just defending the standard that one would normally do, and I'm only saying this stuff to be helpful to the discussion because a lot of people don't realize this. A We Office or a community office can be rented for $24 an hour. I can keep all my stuff in my garage, suits, whatever the case may be, racks, whatever the case may be, and I can put that in my minivan.
Right.
Drive over to a We Office, have my client meet me at 1200 whatever street, suite whatever. Come in and have the whole entire display. Happens all the time.
Perfect.
I don't need to have a 700. When you said that, I was like, oh, Jesus, no, not no image consultant. No.
Well, here's the thing. The $700, I mean, for a man that claims to be of Kevin Samuels' status,
right?
And he hasn't said how much he's made, but $700 a month on a man who claims to have a $20,000 boot collection isn't that much of a, we're talking about really small collection. I mean, I'll put it to you this way. I was living in my car for 3 years. Even I had a recording studio, and I paid $500 a month for a recording studio that was on Brentwood Stair Boulevard in Fort Worth, Texas. A person that lived in his car. So you get what I'm saying here? Now, that We Office is a great idea. And I've even seen offices that are like that. Go ahead.
But professionally, I disagree. You tend to do that stuff the way you do it because that's your viewpoint of it.
Well, professional is professional, Mr. Research.
No, that's
not we can't get past certain facts.
No, that's not true. That's not true, my fellow brother. That's your perception of it. Let's use the music model again, just like you did. I sing. I'm a G4. Okay. I can rent a studio for a 10-hour block of $100 or $200. The reason why I can do that is because I have enough musical theory knowledge and engineering knowledge to orchestrate what I want done. I want 30 minutes on the drums. I want the layout to be this way across the boards. Let's pull that up on the screen. I want to see the wave patterns of each hook. See, I'm able to do that. So therefore, I'm not going to eat, like, even when you said 500, I would never pay 500 to nobody. I mean, I grew up not grew up, but I spent my 30s out near Patchwork Studios in Atlanta. I would never pay their prices. So it's like,
well, how much was it to rent a couple of hours at Patchwork? Because you're talking about the top of the line. I mean, Patchwork had a minimum, and I think like they at least went for $50 an hour at Patchwork Studios, at least.
No, Patchwork was like geez, you had to pay like you $50 an hour. That's just for you to stand in the corner and record and practice your whatever and use the acoustics. But if you had an engineer, you was doing at least bare cheapest. I remember when Jeezy had Red. I think Red was paying like about $500 an hour.
So my
I
thing,
know,
the
yeah,
reason I'm saying is that yeah, it's cool to I guess rent patchwork studios and things of that nature. But what I'm saying is this: it would have been a lot more beneficial for you financially to invest in a studio for
true,
yourself to
true,
be able to. And here's the other flip side of it:
at
say you
least,
get your own engineer, you can start making money out of your own studio, so
true,
you don't have to go to patchwork. That's where
true.
I. That's where women and black women say black men don't own anything. That's where this has validity. Now, getting back to this entire rent situation, like I said, I understand that you might not need a storefront to do something, but the fact that you list a house, which we don't know anything of, and I'll put it to you like this: if if you're like a white person that wanted to do business with Kevin Samuels, and you knew he was black, and he was like, "Yeah, here, come to this address,"
Uh-huh.
and you saw that it was a house, you could
No, no,
admit this
no,
or not, but there
no,
would be
no, 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 no,
somewhat
no,
of
no.
a well,
Yeah,
why does he have a house type thing? For
stop
instance,
again,
I'm gonna
sir.
tell you something. I'm
No,
gonna tell
I
you something.
know.
Let me tell you something. Hold on. My dad owned a suit business. My dad owned a custom suit business when we were in Michigan. And you know what one of the first questions he would always get is it do you have a store? Yeah, aside from do you have a card, it'd be, hey, do you have a store? Where's your stores at? Where's your store at? It was automatically assumed that if you said that you had a business, that there'd be a front or a storefront that they could go visit you at. Now it was
That
kind of a cop out so they could get out of my father's face and make it seem like they were interested in the suit. But we can't escape the fact that it's expected of you to have a store if you're claimed to be a business owner.
that is true. But sir, that's not the 1999 type of style.
I
Uh,
understand that, but that's what
I
high
have
value
problems.
people. That's how high value people operate.
I
People who
know,
have
but
money to have stores, they have stores.
no, that's not true, sir. I mean, it depends on your style of operation. Both of my both of my online businesses are the address for my online business are through a PO box. It's been like that for over 20 years.
Right.
So a lot of times you do things for tax purposes. Let me show you how
Yes,
he would benefit.
but Kevin doesn't claim to do this for tax purposes.
I
On
know he
every
does. I
woman's
know.
interview that he gives, he claims to be the fashion expert or the image consultant of the millennium. And but we don't have any observations of this, just like you agreed to. There's no evidence of anything that he's done. And even if you try and go find the evidence, there's no working video links that prove or show anything that he's done. I'll tell you what Kevin Samuels is. Kevin Samuels is a motivational slash demotivational speaker. He's motivational to men who have been disenfranchised and feel who they just can't attain a certain level of existence that their partners want them to be in, that the black women want them to be. And he's demotivational to women, and he's real to a lot of women who come on the show expecting to be able to acquire a certain type of man. Kevin Samuels is a good speaker, but I him being a fashion consultant, I'm not saying he can't dress well because the dude's sharp, but he's no more of a fashion consultant than I am a race car driver. Just because I own a race car or own a suit in this case, that doesn't make you a fashion consultant. What makes me a race car driver is me actually racing and me getting paid to primarily race and
Yeah,
me having credits or content that I could show or me having trophies that I can show of me winning races. That's what makes me a race car driver. So until then, I'm just a man who owns a race car. Now, like I said, Kevin Samuels is a great speaker. He has a, and not even so, to be completely honest with you, but he's great at leading to a certain extent. There's a little cult that he's formed for the most part, and it takes a certain type of person or personality to be able to run a cult of his nature.
yeah.
But he's
You know
not.
what?
Go ahead.
There is some good points in that, but I will defend his his points are not so much what he does. His points are whether there is validity to his image concerns when he talks with women. And nobody ever addresses that. It's always name calling the guy or something else. So let me go to the point where I agree. So there is no proof of concept when it comes to image consulting. Okay, he did do something with C Boogie. That's all I know of. So that's fair critique there. But nevertheless, you don't have to really show it. Just like a golf trainer doesn't have to show he gets $1,000 an hour teaching some.
I think it's fair to say, Mr. Research, that's completely wrong, and here's why. And I'll let you go 10 seconds. Image consulting is probably the legitimate only business where what you're showing is the only thing that matters. It's image. It's image. It's what you see. It's before and after. That's the one business where I think vanity is the name of the game.
Mm.
You see what I mean? And so it's almost like a direct contradiction in and out of itself. Like, wait a second, you're telling me that you know the best image for somebody else, but your website doesn't even work. But your link still works. There's no videos on your website, but there's no proof that I can see visually. That you don't have a storefront that I can walk into visually. It's very challenging to attest to the fact if you're one of his followers.
You're back to the storefront. You're back to the storefront, sir, and we've already concluded.
We're talking about the website. We're talking about links. We're talking about the entire image of your brand.
The professionalism of what you should be doing.
Now, here's the thing. If Kevin Samuels said, hey, I'm Kevin Samuels, I'm a dating coach, I'm a this, I'm a that, go to my YouTube channel and you can see, go to my Facebook group and you can see the people that I put together, even though, I mean, being honest, putting together 3 couples that have gotten engaged, I mean, that's not really like a staggering number. I'm sure all of us have hooked up a friend or two and they've ended up getting married to the person.
He has proven that he can show that action, and some of us can't prove that we hooked up a friend or two. But go ahead.
But we're not claiming to be dating coaches, right? That's the bigger point here. Even I have hooked up a friend. That's well, I don't think they got married, but they dated for a long time. So maybe. But I'm not a dating coach. I'm a YouTuber. Kevin Samuels is a YouTuber. He like, I go back to the race car comparison. You know, I'm not a race car driver just because I have a Formula One car. I don't have the proof to show that I have been race car driving. Now, I know you're caught up on the storefront.
Why should he have to prove to people who are not paying him? Why is that necessary?
Why does he have to prove to people who aren't paying? Well, the thing is, you can't claim to be something. You can't claim to be something and then offer not to prove what you're claiming to be. For instance,
why not?
If a police officer pulls you over and says, I'm a police officer, but you don't see a badge, you're going to say, or you don't see police lights, or you don't see the word that says police car on the side of his car, you're going to start to wonder, like, are you a police officer or are you someone impersonating a police officer?
True.
Can I see your badge? Can you identify yourself? I know we all see videos of people claiming to be sovereign citizens saying, identify yourself. I'm going to take a picture of your badge or this or that. So if someone says they're a police officer, but they don't have a police car and they pull you over in a Honda Civic, something's off. And so
wait. You got white people that do this. HT. You got white people that do this all the time. You got a guy right now claiming that he had general manager experience, but he has none, and he's now the interim general manager for the Houston whatever that football team name is. You also had another guy previous to that who for 20 years ran the Georgia Bulldogs, claiming that he had a degree, and turns to find out he never even went past high school. So you got people who do that all the time, but I understand.
Lying on the resume isn't a completely new concept. I mean, and I hate to even bring this guy up, but Jeffrey Epstein was a teacher in a private school for like 10 years before they pulled his records and they said, you don't even have a college degree, you didn't graduate high school, and he finally said, no, I didn't. But they liked him so much that they kept him there anyway. So yeah, people have been lying on their resumes forever. But what I'm saying is this: you can't just throw that in people's faces and claim to be this next level top tier person in your genre of business if you don't even have a website that works. You can't claim to be at the top of your game if you aren't at the top of your game, if you're not willing to show what your game consists of. For instance, that's like me walking to the basketball court and be like, man, I could show all of y'all up on the basketball court. Man, I don't even have to shoot. Well, come hop on the court then. No, I don't have to. Just take my word for it. It's like, well, why you're saying some big talk? Why would we not want to see you in action? You're going to build up the expectations to what you are and who you are and what you represent. People are going to want to see you walk that out. For instance, dudes, when they're about to get into a fight and they're doing all that talking, at the end of the day, all that talking and all that yelling really doesn't matter when the fists get to flying, because the fists are the true determining factors behind the words of what you're saying to a person. The actions
Whoever
are the
hits the
determining
ground
factors.
first loses.
Huh? Go ahead.
Whoever hits the ground first loses.
Facts, big facts. All that talking, and here's the thing about fighting, and here's the thing about showing the real. Typically, the people that are the best at what they could do, now not all the time, but typically the people who are extremely good singers, are extremely good athletes, or they're the most talented, they're the best ball player. They're usually the one that just kind of, hey, are you good, man? They'll nod a little bit, they'll acknowledge it a little bit because they don't want to come over as cocky. It's just kind of like the subtle part of human nature. Typically, the best dudes who really got hands, like there's always a saying, watch out for the quiet kid in class because he's the one that can come and shoot the school up, right? So there's something psychologically about that subtleness, that quiet, that chill factor. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, things are popping off. And so they teach you not to be worried about the dog that barks all the time, but it's the dog that kind of looks at you for a while and doesn't wag its tail, it just kind of stares at you for a while. Those are the dogs that attack. Very seldom do the dogs get.
I've always found that the people who are the best at, let's say, sticking to the fighting or even any sports thing is the mental people, the people
Facts.
who are mentally calculated about what's about to happen.
Facts.
And the problem is, like I had somebody one time on YouTube, oh man, you don't sound like Free from the Hood. And I described to him how if I could, I would get him. Oh, dude, you crazy. Don't nobody think like that. I say, exactly. You're not understanding. I'll just say this. It had to do with me hiding in the garbage can.
Yeah.
I said, dude, you just don't understand your level of hood and what it takes. I will go sit and do 20 months because getting you had to be that important to me.
Right. Right.
You're not ready to go to sleep for 20 months. So therefore, let's not have that type of conversation based on my voice and you thinking I'm not, bro, stop that.
Big facts. And so, going back to Kevin, I don't think that he has a leg to stand on in this entire. Oh, I'm a fashion guru.
Ultimately, going to have to prove more.
I'll be honest. Ultimately, his fashion. The reason that his website isn't that nice as far as his fashion and his consultations, and the reason he doesn't have a storefront or this or that or whatever it might be, is because economically it didn't work out for him, right? It didn't work out for him. I mean, we're just being completely honest. If it worked out for him, that's what he would be pushing right now. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that the guy can't dress. I mean, even you have fashion sense. That suit that you got on there, that's a beautiful suit, form fitting, nice colors, nice everything. But it didn't work out. Just like I'm not a rapper as much as I would like to be a rapper / singer / artist.
Yo.
All the time I put in, I wasn't good enough. I didn't have the clientele. I didn't have the numbers. I didn't have the amount of people walking into and asking for my advice on hey, how do I record this track? Or hey, I want to get a track recorded. I'm gonna pay you for it. If I would have loved to be able to be an artist, but I can't claim to be a studio engineer or artist now. Right now, I'm a worker. I'm a dusty YouTuber and a worker for another company. Until something else changes in my life, that's what I am. Now, do I see myself that way necessarily? No. I'm not just gonna say I'm a dusty and I'm only gonna be a dusty for my whole life, but I have to be honest with myself. Well, a lot of people, they hold on to this little, oh, well, I got a business and I do this and I do that, but the business isn't working out. So we spend so much time claiming these false identities that are doing a disservice to us. And this whole lifestyle coach, fashion coach is the same type of thing with Kevin Samuels. Yes, the dude can dress. Can he have a woman walk up in front of him and probably make her look good? Who knows? Probably, because he can dress well for himself. I don't know. But you can't use that and throw this in women's face like, B, I know you're lying to me because I'm an image coach, because I'm a fashion consultant, because I'm this, I'm that. Dude, your website doesn't even work. So you're not a consultant. You're a YouTuber.
Well, here's the thing. At some point in time, because I seen the same thing happen to Michael Bazin. If you had been around, you would have critiqued Michael Bazin the same way. Mike, at one point in time, his stuff was not working. It was not the way it should be. And At that time, I had a connect to Mike because he and I went to the same clothier in Atlanta, and I would see him every other third or sixth Saturday. Some way, somehow, I'd bump into him. And Mike got catapulted into other things. And because Mike got catapulted into other things, other stuff behind him dropped. Now, to your point, he should have just hired an assistant to take care of all that back end stuff. But sometimes what happens to people, they get pulled, and I'm guilty of this too. It's been 3 weeks and I forgot to pay my online employees. And I have forgot about it too. And that's not good business. I'll agree. But that one of my employees said, hey, I put in 2 of my timesheets. I haven't got my pay yet. Oh man, snap. So things do drop by the wayside, especially when you're a single entity. I don't know if that's Kevin's problem. It could be, like you said, some of that stuff could be true. What I do know is 4 months from now, Kevin is going to have to caterpillar into a different type of butterfly. And then you'll be able to solidify whether those critiques are valid or invalid.
Right.
Because with all the success he's getting, his YouTube gets him, I'd say he gets about close to 120, if not 150,000.
Facts.
Through AdSense and donations.
Facts.
So
yeah, I agree. He's gonna have to start taking a different position. He's gonna have to start admitting, you know what, the fashion thing didn't really work for me. The YouTube thing works. That's cool. That's all fine and dandy, right? It's the reason he didn't have a storefront, because if the fashion thing really worked, you'd have a storefront. Now, what I don't like about Kevin at the end of the day still is this holier than thou mindset, this holier than thou mentality. That's why he likes people to call him the Godfather. The Godfather, this fictional character, the Godfather, was the ultimate mob boss. He deserved everybody's respect. And if you didn't respect the Godfather in the movie, he had you killed, right? So Kevin likes to liken himself to this somewhat fictional character, Godfather. So this entire mindset, this holier than thou, this mindset of address me a certain way. You can't come on my stream with any kind of this disrespect or this or that, because everything I say, my ish don't stink type mentality, is the same mentality that his mob followers, his Trump supporter followers, as they call them, are starting to gain in and out of their own personal experiences in life. So now men are starting to cope with this "you can't tell me nothing as a man" mentality, because I know at the end of the day, my Godfather told me that all these women are evil. My Godfather told me that I'm okay where I am in life. And so I'm not going to strive to try and get better as a person. I'm going to stick exactly where I am. Because,
what do you want the end result to be? Let's take Kevin out of it. What do you want the end result to be? What do you want black men to be doing?
For men to be men and self-identify as a man. And this is how. Not following what another man thinks or feels, but thinking logically within themselves and where they're at in life of how they can be a better version. Go ahead.
Should we follow women?
No, men don't follow women, but men listen to facts and wisdom where there's wisdom. For instance, a homeless person can teach a rich man something. A rich man can teach a homeless person something. There's wisdom everywhere in life, not just where you seek it. But the problem is, with everything going on, with people separated the way that they're separated, with the Trump supporters hating the Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter hating the Trump supporters, who hate the Antifa, who hate the gays, who hate the lesbians, who hate the Californians, who hate the Texans. Everybody feels like the way and the people that they associate with is the only way to get to heaven. Just like a million people have a million different religions, but all of them claim that their religion is the only way, right? All of them claim that their religion, their gods are the only devout. That's the only way to make it to heaven. All the religious fanatics say the same thing. Now, what religion you choose to follow, that's you as a man. But what I'm saying is that I have no problem listening to other people who have different religions. And just because you believe something that's not aligned with my beliefs, that's not going to cause me to hate you. That's not going to cause me to berate you. That's not going to cause me to not choose to have a friendship with you or whatever it might be, because I'm a man and I can think for myself and I can appreciate somebody else's thought of you, regardless of whether or not that aligns with how I feel or hurts my feelings or aligns with my lifestyle choices. And that's what you see in so many of these chat rooms. You have these children who are calling these women linebackers out of anger. You have women that are insulting other women who want to be wife, calling them pick Mishas and this and that. And so it's not just men, but I am addressing the men right now specifically because men are acting like children. So what do I want to see? I want to see men act as men and be able to come onto the panel like you are and have rebuttals without calling me a simp or threatening my life like they did 2 streams ago. I've had people, and this is not the only life threat that I've had, a threat for harm, but the veil in front of men's eyes is so thick right now that they're only hurting themselves in the long run by not listening to a person like myself. But you'd be hard pressed.
Here's the pushback with your theory. I understand this planet operates off of zealots and monolithic thinking. Americans don't like to believe that, but all Arabs think the same way. Even when the darker Arabs get treated disrespectfully by the lighter Arabs, for some strange reason, they still say, we're down with the Arabs who are mistreating us. Same thing you mentioned religion, Islam. Africans are following a Syrian-created religion, yet it has no ties to Africa whatsoever. And then they have Arabs treat the Africans disrespectfully. And then the Africans said, well, we're both Islam brothers. No, we're not, slave. So,
right.
I understand your independent thinking mentality. It's not really achievable in these concepts because people gravitate toward groups. When white people do this anti-black thing where they're willing to say, I'm from Spain, I'm white. Okay, sir, how are you white when Hannibal's grandfather, an African guy, occupied Iberia way before Rome even existed? So how are you white? Way before the first person got there, you had the sea people having a fight with Ramesses II. History shows that you all were African descent. So how are you white? Yet, in an effort to be included, he's willing to cling to the fact I'm white so I can be under this white protection. Well, I say that the same thing about Kevin HT. Mm-hmm. He's an umbrella right now for the disenfranchised. I know you want that type of thing to go away and people just fend for themselves, but they prefer to be under a monolith at this point. Go ahead, sir.
So, I completely agree. We are tribal creatures of habitation and of acts. We get together based off of the people that fit our belief systems and fit our narrative and where we are in life. And the thing is, I would have no problem with that. But the fact of the matter is that Black people are dead last in the world. And so this level of thought that we have achieved so far, this level of thought that we're walking in right now, has done absolutely nothing but placed us dead last.
Wait. Let me defend Kevin a little bit. This is a different level of thought, though. This is actual competing at the debate level, which we've never had as Africans. Africans have never extended to the theologians. We've never extended into theory.
I'm not classifying as what we're doing as progress, because in the 50s and 60s there was no need to debate your Black brother because it was understood that you were all together against a greater cause, which was definite racism, which was Jim Crow era. And so they weren't debating each other back in the 50s and 60s. If you had another Black person that you saw on the streets or outside, there was a point in time when Black people were together. Like you didn't have to question your Black brother. So we haven't made progress necessarily.
Debating wasn't my topic. My topic was the elevation that you want. The elevation.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying for sure. Definitely.
In the 60s, we didn't elevate because we were not debating. We were just working for whatever crumbs whites would give us and being happy about it and going to get fur coats.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, to some extent, yes, but to some extent, no. For instance, Black Wall Street that happened in the 20s, right? That was in Arkansas, I believe. Black people built an entire economic system independent of the white dollar, right? And so it hadn't always been where Black people were just content with staying where they are. But at some point, Black people's spirit and mindset became defeated. And part of that was due to outside influences, but part of that was purely based off of the Black initiative, if you will.
I don't know if that's true too, because when you look at places in that you've quoted, this is just my research. You have a different research, but these guys went out to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to get away from the white folks. They went out and befriended the Indians of those areas, created cabins, created houses. They had infrastructure. The white people came out to them after the train train rail was built to go out that way, and they got jealous working for well-to-do Black people. And they are the ones who set out to try to harm Black people with the police sergeant in his airplane dropping bombs from the sky.
Right, for sure. No, definitely.
So when other Blacks heard that, you don't want to open up a store. You don't want to. You just want to work. Go ahead, though.
Well, the thing about that is they're not dropping bombs out of the sky anymore, right? And they haven't been for some time now. And so it's somewhat of that victim mentality that all of these followers of Kevin Samuels and Jessica X and all of these manosphere dudes have. This woe is me that I can't do any better right now because my great grandfather was a slave. You know, I think that our ancestors right now, if they could look at the state of Black people, would be completely ashamed that they were hung from trees, that they died to get us to where we are as a people right now. And this is Black women and Black men, right? But to that point, I think it's very disgraceful that the good Black people in the community are destroyed so much against. For instance, Black women call the women who are extra feminine in some of these groups pygmishas, and that's seen as an insult. I think it's horrible how men such as myself, who speak with intelligence, and yourself as well, who can have intelligent debates and debacles and things of that nature, we're seen as, and believe it or not, you are too, we're seen as nothing more than simps because you're not standing for their godfather 10,000%, 10 toes down. And if you're not standing for what they believe in, then you're an enemy of them. I think that our ancestors would look now and say, at what point did y'all accept the same defeatist attitude that we might have had, even though they had a legitimate reason, because they were being hunted down and they were having their body parts cut off, they were being burned alive. But even then, they didn't give up. They still marched against the grain, regardless of how much torment they had to go through. But we have Black people today that have nothing stopping them from going to college. They have nothing stopping them from owning a business. Like I said, 1.2% of businesses in the United States are Black owned, but Black men are 35% of the jail population. There's nothing stopping Black men from getting together collectively and doing like the Asians and Latinos go and invest into a business or invest into a fashion line or invest into a hot dog stand, for God's sakes. There's nothing stopping Black people except for Black people at this point. You know
what's amazing. You know what's amazing. Like you omitted everything the Black women do against men like yourself and myself, calling us lame, defaming us to their daughters and their nieces. You left all that out. You focused on the guys. You want the guys accountable. I'll give you that because in the boyosphere, I'm very hard on dudes. Everybody knows Mr. Research is hard on dudes. But at the same time, you omitted all of these things that women do. Okay, fine. I believe in forget it, walk past the women. I get it. But I just think I feel sorry sometimes when we have these conversations because you guys never, prior to 1999, you, sir, would have got arrested at least 16 times a year. Okay, because of what Reagan and Clinton put in as a policy. People made money off of just putting you in a squad car for no reason and holding you. That was a thing. I myself, with all the dirt that I've done prior, I never had as many arrests as I had just trying to get to work. I think in the time when I stopped selling drugs, I must have been arrested 32 times for erroneous. No, serious. You guys don't understand what the policies were at the time. Because I think it's so easy for you guys to say, oh, you just start all over again. No, bro. A lot of these dudes have records from things that they never initiated. So I got arrested probably 32 times selling no drugs, had no guns. Most of my stuff is traffic or just walking. Okay. I've had officers pull my car over one time because he said my car looked dilapidated. Not because I did anything incorrect on the road, not because my license and my registration and my insurance wasn't right. He harassed me because he saw too many rust spots on my bucket. And I'm trying to get to work. You know what he did? Arrested me, towed my car, and held me in jail for 3 weeks. You guys have no experience of that type of stuff. Then I got to get out, get my car, and mind you, they had a little deal to where if you don't get your car out in 30 days, mind you, you're in jail, then they're going to put your car up for auction and you have to start all over again. I've even gotten arrested for the same ticket in Decatur, Georgia, that was supposed to be removed. You know what the judge told me? Well, when we released you, you were supposed to contact the Capitol and have it removed. Sir, why would I need to do that? And you told me time served when I was here last time for the same case. Now you've held me in jail for 4 months. I've lost my apartment. I've been evicted. All my stuff is out. What the hell? But guess what? At the same time, the deputy of that jail, a black guy, put out a murder hit on the newly elected deputy that was taking his place. So the whole deal was shut down. My point in saying this, sir, I want you to get the full understanding that when you guys, younger guys, you have this energy, you guys omit a lot of history that got it to this point. And for the first time when Obama became president, you got to remember, Clinton left Bush with a lot of money. Dick Cheney screwed it all off. There was jobs everywhere, sir. There was jobs everywhere. But Clinton was arresting everybody. Clinton and Biden. So you had these city, you didn't even have private jails until Ronald Reagan came around. He invented the thought process of private jails. And at least George Bush Sr. was honest enough not to capitalize on it. But
my question to you is this: if I understand, that I don't understand a lot of that, and so one thing I say is that there's wisdom in things that I don't understand, and so
only because you be dressing it up like it's an easy thing to have a record from something that got falsified on you, and then you can just be in 1999 now, and then everything's just good. It doesn't work like that. But go ahead.
Well, my thing is this: is that it definitely doesn't work like that, and I appreciate you, giving your history on the struggles that you've experienced with, racism and things of that nature. My point is this, and this still stands, is that as much as you were at war with white people at one point, it didn't help you were at war with black people as well, or it didn't help that the black community didn't have the establishments needed for you to fall back on. For instance, you said that you had a record, that you got a record. It becomes a lot harder to get a job. There was systematic trickle-down racism, yes, but why did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s black people start killing each other whilst the cops were locking you up as well? It's like you're at war with black people and you're at war with white people at the same time. So for a period of time, the period that you're specifically mentioning, the Ronald Reagan era war on drugs, black people were robbing, killing each other, and then the police were robbing and killing black people as well. So it's like you're getting assaulted from all fronts. True. What I'm saying is this: for some reason, and I don't know exactly why, but black people didn't come together through all the persecution that happened in the 70s and 80s. But we started making gangs up and getting gangs to go to war with each other. And we can say that this has been media influenced, or
exactly
the powers that be made all this happen, or whatever it might have been. But for the sake of time, it just doesn't make a lot of sense the way that black people responded to these situations, which was to start killing each other. Go ahead.
You're in your community right now. Right. If you have 36 high schoolers.
And I want to say this before you go to that. The thing is this: we're still men at the end of the day, bro. We're still men, and so it's still on a man's job to make sure that he does the best for his community as he can. That doesn't change regardless of what you've gone through. That doesn't change. As much as it hurts, it doesn't change. But go ahead.
That's the second thing, but there's half agreement with that, but I'll get to that in a second. If you're in your community where you are right now, and there are 36 high schoolers threatening you and every old man around, explain to me, how do you stop it?
Well, at that point, it's probably too late to stop it because we know that the most crucial parts of human development is from infancy. So from age 0 to 3 or 4 is the most crucial parts of development. When something's 17, 18 years in the making, it's very hard to change that person without direct repercussions or direct, I guess you could say, reactions to the action that's being taken.
See, this is the thing. I'm a very unique type of individual. I'm from the shoot 'em up era, okay? And what I try to tell people like yourself is, you guys want these things to be an easy makeover. And on paper, it may seem like that. Why you not just sell the drugs? Why do it? If I take vaping right now and I put something as simple as cat urine in the vape, which is actually in many cigarettes, okay? I put cat urine. There's something about cat urine that's extremely addictive to your body. Okay. It's in a lot of cigarettes. Okay. If I put that in vape right now, vape is a drug everybody's using. Am I correct? A lot of people are not super addicted to it. But if I put it in the way Freebase did to cocaine, you will be addicted and not realize it. It will take you guys 5 years, like it did meth heads, to realize this is having a direct effect on your body now that your teeth are falling out. But by then, it's too late. When I hear people come and give this critique about what Ronald Reagan did to try to get his Sandinista war happening, dropping all this crack on the streets, all he did was do what vaping is now. He took a party drug, which not many people knew not to mess with heroin. That's why you didn't have a bunch of heroin addicts. But people thought that the cocaine thing was safe because everybody else is vaping. It's the same thing. And so he created the Freebase, which took out all the baking soda properties to it and made it a raw form of the crystallized leaf. And people got more addicted. People didn't realize till you about to sell your baby now because this habit has gotten you. Now, couple that with the fact, sir, a 12-year-old is now king of your neighborhood because 15-year-olds all got automatic guns and they're killing anybody with an opinion. You know that father you talked about? Hey, we got to change. They killed him too. And then anytime somebody does arrest the little a-hole, here comes that single mother out crying and fighting for the dude because she's complicit too. It's a never-ending problem, but people like yourself, and we really got to have this conversation. I'd be glad to have you on my side and talk with my guys. But y'all got to be more honest about how y'all critique the older people
I agree with you, Mr. Research. I know that it's not a simple explanation or fix all, right? I completely get that. The best way to do that, and welcome to the stream, W. I'll let you speak right after this point. The best way to do that is going to be to bring more money into the Black community, essentially. All the big problems that you talk about, they could have been fixed or cured with economic resources. And that starts to change the mentality when you have more options, when you see more of the world as a young kid. And that's part of the reason why I have no problem with Black women dating or divesting away from Black people, because ultimately you want to know something that's very true that I think a lot of Black people hate to hear, is that the more interracial kids that are born in more affluent, not rich, but just more well-off environments, more houses and neighborhoods that are taken care of, because a lot of white people take better care of their houses than Black people do. I know this is a general sterilization, but it's the truth. Okay, it's just the truth. I'm sorry to say it. So the more of these interracial kids, the more divesting that we have into the community, it's going to do one or two things. The solution is this: the solution is having children in better environments, but you can't do that for the most part at any soon immediate time, because Black people don't own any environments independently to have better situations or children inside of. And so there's a lot of different answers. It comes down to making more money, and then it comes down to having better environments to where you don't have to have a kid with the AR-15 to survive. The only way to do that is to be better men, and for women to find better men. That's it. So I said this before, and I said this earlier. White women are more naturally submissive. Or Black women are more naturally submissive to white men. And all of us as Black men can attest to that. I've seen women who are typically more of the ghetto, quote unquote, nature with a white man, and they talk very proper and they're submissive and things of that nature. We all attest to that. Well, why is that? Well, it's for a lot of different reasons. For the sake of time and for so we can keep moving on, it's because the resources that a white man offers by and large is just different from the resources that Black men offer. I understand Ronald Reagan, the drug era, the lack of resources that we have. I get all of that. But us complaining about that now in 2020, Mr. Research, isn't going to do anything at this point, man. And so, go ahead, W. I'm sorry.
Hey, thank you for allowing me on, and I'm really grateful, and I agree with pretty much everything you say. I just think it's pathetic for us as Black people to really keep on going about these things that happened to us in the past, like the 20th century and stuff, things that none of us really ever went through. And we're using this as the reason why we can't try to do something to better our situation right now in 2021. You're totally right that we have to be men, and we need to do our best to make sure that we put our children in the best situation possible. The large majority of Black children in this nation grew up in poverty. The large, overwhelming majority of Black children in this nation grew up in poverty. And that's because there isn't a stable home environment, right? A lot of these kids are just born out of the blue, out of wedlock, from one-night stands, irresponsible one-night stands, and the woman just keeps the baby just because she can, and they're born into wretched economic environments. I don't think we as Black people, we don't see our ignorance, or we do, or we just want to be willfully ignorant about it. This is unacceptable in the 21st century because there's so many ways that this can be prevented. We as individuals, we have to be accountable for ourselves and our own lives. And when you're at a certain age, you have to be once you get to a certain age, I really do believe that you must take responsibility for your own life, and blaming someone else, a white man or something, for you not taking responsibility for your life, being a man.
Question.
One thing I want to say is, the thing is about what white women, Black women, divesting and stuff and going to different communities. I don't think that needs to happen. They can just stay here, and they just need to pick smarter men to be with. Don't pick Pookies and Ray Rays. Pick smarter men to be with, and go up to what a man really wants, and that's him. That's a man being submissive, a woman being submissive, feminine, good looking, willing to support a man and do what a man says. That's all.
Question to W. My only concern is when you guys make these statements, you don't have specificity attached to it. Yes, we do need to do these things, but you guys are so new to the issues that you have no specificity of how. I will agree on this. With the invention of the internet, the Black man's invention of the 1995 internet, you now in 1999, 2000, for the first time, I will agree, W, you have more of a clean slate. You don't have people harassing you. You don't have these things going on. But then I put the question to you again. Where is the specificity? you're relying on people to be, once again, like we did in my generation, for non-blacks to be fair. Just because 10% of us make it or do well does not mean that UW will not run through a lot of adversity and be like, wow, that's what Mr. Research is talking about. But I had to be 36 or 49 to realize people were this anti-black. You guys just haven't been through it yet.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Can I tell you how I grew up? So I'm going to tell you how I grew up. I grew up affluent. You know, my dad was a doctor. I guess me growing up in a certain environment, that really changed. I had a mindset that was different from a lot of black people and stuff. You know, I come from an immigrant background.
You were in a protected environment with a flag from your grandparents. I get it.
What do you mean flag from my grandparents? What do you mean?
Oh, this is what I call flag culture. I'm gonna let you finish, but this is what I call flag culture. And thank you, HT, for letting us have this conversation.
No problem.
When I travel, I've been traveling since 19. I lived in Romania at 20 years old. When you are a person who has your grandfather's flag, you're not necessarily attached here to America. America could fail, and you can go to Italy not knowing any Italian, not knowing anything, just off your grandparents' lineage. That's key. That's vital. If you were a Russian living here in America, hiding amongst white people, if America was to fail for you like it did the Boston bombers, those two guys, they're actually Russian kids. If things fail, they can go back to Russia and be open arms, everything's okay. When you have a flag, you can go to any country, stop at your local restaurant with that flag and get all the information about that country. As a USA person with darker skin, you're not able to do that. Because when you go to a USA flag, you're seen as not so much of a USA person. So respectfully to you, I just wanted to, before you continue, have you understand that you have a unique cushion. Not only did you have financial stability, but you also had the flag of your grandfathers that you could have used if you have chosen to. We who are at the time 20 years old felt trapped here because this is all we could really do. We can't go to our grandfather's land. If so, man, you would have had an exodus a long time ago. But go ahead, W. I don't want to stop you.
Okay, I have two things to say. One, the country, we couldn't go back to the country. I mean, the country was shit. It's full of corruption. I mean, we can't go. It's not the country that anyone wants. So, I mean, this is the only country that we thought that we could make it here. USA, this is the country that my father picked to come here, immigrate, and become a success. Second, anti-blackness. I mean, really, dude. I mean, that doesn't really matter. I don't care what white people, Asian people, Latino people think of us. Okay, that doesn't mean that we should be self-destructive in our nature. That doesn't mean we should shoot each other and kill each other in the streets like animals. True. I mean, this is unacceptable. Thank you.
True. Well, let me get a little pushback, W. You do realize Africans kill each other like animals. You do realize Italians,
of course,
Ukrainians, Serbians, everybody kills. So it's not unique to that. The only thing I would say, though, W, is that sometimes when people come here, W, they, especially if they have darker skin, they tend to pretend to be African American so they can use the Negro College Fund, so they can get a grant as a black man or a black woman when really they're not. A famous person of this, just to show you evidence, the Indian lady Mindy Cohen, I think her name was, her brother pretended to be a African American just so he can cheat and use African American donated dollars so he can get a doctor's degree. So when people come and do stuff like that, it's like, yeah, you made it, but under which guise? And, you know, and now, go ahead, W.
Look, this is only, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but that's only a small amount of people. again, we should not be worried about some fraudster. That doesn't matter. I mean, like, why does that matter? Why are we trying to blame our problem? Like, we need to worry.
Let me explain. You asked the question. You asked the question. Let me explain. Okay. Because everything is group economics.
Yes, I know.
So when if somebody misuses Italian group or Jewish group economics, the Jewish and the Italian people complain. They don't have a person like you saying, well, why are we really worried about that? No, they all form together like Voltron and say, no, that's not fair. He is not Jewish. But when we have a complaint of the same magnitude, respectfully to you, we have our younger people say, yeah, just ignore it. Just let us use it. So what, all of our resources get used up. That shouldn't matter. Respectfully, it does matter. So I will take the complaint that you have about us hurting each other and doing wrong. I said to HT earlier, that's an African thing, because just like Nigeria, that's not the real name of Nigeria. The real name is Nok. Nigeria is a name that a white woman created, a white whore on top of that.
Yeah, my dad.
Right. So people, I guess in my little small pushback, I want to agree with you 60-40. I do agree on those things, W. I'm just saying the 40% of the disagreement is we're inconsistent about our outrage, because when other people do the exact same thing, we're quiet. But then when our people have the exact Jewish complaint, Italian complaint, well, in order for us to do what HT wants us to do, to be a higher level people, the suit and tie brothers like myself got to make these statements. And I can't have people like, oh, just let it go. It's okay. Jewish people get reparations every year, 700,000, 500,000. 700 million, 500 million. But you shouldn't be applying for reparations. We just don't need that energy unless you guys are going to dissect it on a logical level. But go ahead. You have the last word.
Let me talk real quickly. Look, we are the only ethnic group who kind of does this group thing, to be honest. Group thing on a national stage, trying to vie for spots in universities, get lucrative job opportunities and stuff. We use a lot of our victimhood status to get these positions, because we just can't compete. We can't hack it at the level as the other groups. The reason why people have almost formed this group thing is because we have really just ruined it for everyone else, unfortunately, where, hey, an Asian needs to score higher, much higher on the SAT than someone who's black, right? Second, reparations, about Jews getting reparations. Jews, they don't get, we give a lot of foreign aid to Israel every year. There's difference between foreign aid and giving reparations. That's very
No, that's not true. That's not true. We're not giving them foreign aid. We're paying them for what Hitler did to them in Poland.
The USA is doing that.
Yes.
The USA had nothing to do with that. We're not. I swear, we're not. That's not happening. I swear. That's
okay,
not
sir. Happening. Let me ask you this question, just to prove that I'm correct. 1939, Britain and USA brought Polish people to the top of Palestine. Okay, they brought them there. Maybe you don't know the history of that. They brought them there. From 1941, Palestine started fighting back because these people were not indigenous to the land, and USA and Britain start providing them with artillery to fight the Palestinians.
I know.
That's not foreign aid, sir. That's assisting people in taking over somebody's land.
Yeah, that's not the same thing. I know about that. I know all about that. I've taken multiple courses on Zionism. I know all about that. I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm saying we don't give. There's a difference between foreign aid and reparations. I don't, and the foreign aid I don't really agree with. I don't agree with us giving that much money to giving us all that money to Israel. I'm quite well, I just don't agree with.
But just educate me. What do you call foreign aid in 1941 that's being given to them? What do you call foreign aid? Maybe I'm
1941.
Huh?
Say that. 1941.
Yeah, 1941. They that was the first war between Palestine and the Polish people claiming to be Israel. They hadn't even made it to Israel yet. But what do you call foreign aid? Just educate me. I'm not in disagreement.
At that point, that was just Western nations trying to impose their will on the Middle East. That wasn't foreign aid. And that wasn't reparations either.
Okay, sir. Please continue. Please continue. You got the mic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was just, I mean, Western nations trying to form a group to impose their will on the Middle East. That was all it is. It was another colonial. I mean, that wasn't really foreign aid or reparations or anything like that. That was just a plan, a proxy war, another proxy war for the Western world to impose its will on the Middle East. That's all it was.
Well, I think kind of to roll with UW and Mr. Research. I hear what you're saying. I really do. The problem is, okay, it's kind of like if you get caught in a rainstorm and you don't have an umbrella. You don't have an umbrella, and you can't just make an umbrella appear. Now, in the best situation, if all outcomes could be perfect, you would want an umbrella to manifest itself somehow, or for somebody to give you an umbrella. But if nobody gives you an umbrella, if nobody gives you a ride and you're on the side of the highway, the only option you have is to either go find shelter to get out of the rain or to walk to the distance that you're trying to get to. And so what we're expecting right now is for somebody to give us a ride on the side of the highway, or for somebody to give us an umbrella to use so we could shield ourselves from the rain. And that's not happening. And so you can choose to stay out in the rain. You can choose to wish that you had an umbrella, or you can get pieces of leaves. You can climb up into a tree. You can find a cardboard box. Will it ever be good as good as an umbrella? No, it won't be. We understand that.
Actually, why do people think that this country is so anti-black in 2021? Why do they think it's so black people? Why do they think it's so anti-black in 2020? I just don't understand why they think it's so anti-black in 2021 on a real level.
Right. Yeah, definitely. No. I think
they give us free, affirmative action. They give us all these programs to show.
Where do we have affirmative action? Where?
We have affirmative action when it comes to college admissions.
Oh, for schools. Okay.
Yes, for schools, for jobs too.
No, not for jobs.
Say that. They give us.
EEOC has black people as the highest disenfranchised people, according to the EEOC, for the past 4 decades. So please don't say that.
I haven't totally looked out. I haven't.
Please go look up the EEOC for our demographics, sir. We have been disenfranchised. We have the most fired and application blocks out of anybody. So please don't say that, sir. But go ahead. Please continue.
I don't totally know the full story on that. I want to look that up and see the full story on that. But also, again, they're giving us loan. Any qualified black person who applies for a loan will automatically get that loan. You know that, right?
Through Wells Fargo, yes.
They automatically get a loan, right? Because they're trying to trying to show that they're not racist.
Only through Wells Fargo, and the Obama and Biden organization had to force them to do that they promised to do through Barney Frank, but they never did under Bush. They were forced to do that through Obama. So I hear your point, but they were forced to do that, and Wells Fargo had to do it because they took the most money. But go ahead, sir.
Wait, are you talking about are you talking about any type of black person, just any person, the credit score is terrible, the income's not very good, you give them a loan? Are you talking about that? Are you talking about qualified people who have good credit scores, who have good incomes, good good asset history?
So the Obama administration. So here's what happened during the bailout. Remember the bailout of 2008.
Yes,
So here's what happened during the bailout. Barney Frank, when everything happened, they put into effect, hey, if we bail you out and we ask Main Street to bail you out, you cannot sit up here, because this is your second time screwing up. You cannot sit up here and ask tax dollars to cover what has happened to you. That's why some people got absolved in the whole thing. Now, what they promised was, what we'll do is we'll go back to the taxpayers and we will allow XYZ. I think the credit score had to be at least a 600 and blah, 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 blah. Once administrations changed, they didn't follow through. That's when.
And Mr. Research, my thing is still the analogy of it's raining, but you're only wishing you had an umbrella. At some point, you're gonna have to find another way to block out the rain. Now,
I understand. I'm gonna be quiet. I'm gonna be quiet after this because Yander is here and she needs to speak too. Yeah. I understand, gentlemen. I just want. I guess my whole point is, it appears sometimes like our younger brothers and sisters, they put so many restrictions on what the melanated people should do, which allows the children of non-melanated people to do the exact same thing free of finger pointing. And if you're going to do that, gentlemen, you're making it more difficult for the people who are melanated, and you're assisting the children of people who are not, because they go in doing the exact same thing, and people get away with it, which means we should all.
What's the exact same thing? I just want to know. Give me what's the exact same thing.
For an example, let's take a loan, for example. What happens and mind you, I'm on a corporate level. I see this all the time. What happens sometimes, you'll take a person who has a 400 score, and because they have a national connection to another person who is validating the loan, they get it. A person who has had several bankruptcies, because they're both Iranian, because they're both Pakistan, they get it. And then they don't have no young Pakistani person like we have in the Black community who comes out and says, no, that's not right. You got a 400. You should pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But when a Black person does this, our young Black youth come out and say, come on, man, you need to. I have no problem, gentlemen, either way. It's just that we can't have one group being able to do what they wish to do, and then our young people doing what they want to do. Let me fall back, because I believe in sharing the mic, man, and I've talked too long. Go ahead, Yander.
Actually, I just got here, so I really rather listen to you guys so I can get a gist of the conversation before contributing to it.
Sure. Well, right now we're kind of on the topic of, and Mr. Research, it does agree with a lot of the points, but that of being Black men
being a man
necessarily excuses right for what's the status of the Black community is. And Mr. Research has brought to attention a lot of facts, a lot of things that happen as far as the drug war, from disenfranchisement, from this and for that. What me and W are standing for is the no nonsense excuse, that it's 2021. Initially, all the things that our ancestors went through, we haven't gone through. It's a new day. It's a new time and age, and that we have the ability as a man, as a people, as a citizen of the United States to walk in that sovereign citizenship of the United States, which is to take advantage of the economic systems of capitalism, to take advantage of the opportunities that you have to be an entrepreneur if you decide, or to go to school or to go to college. And Mr. Research is saying, and he's putting up good arguments to the fact of that it's not just that easy, and that there's still a lot of systemic racism, and that a lot of people still can't get approved for the house that they're trying to get approved for, that there's redlining in school systems or education systems, and that essentially the man is still holding us back, right? That's kind of where we're at. But I feel like that a lot of women who say that Black men haven't built anything for the community, that Black men haven't done what they needed to do for the community is justified. Go ahead, Yander.
I said they simply don't know history. To be honest, and I know this is going to sound a bit pessimistic, but I believe the community is damaged beyond repair. And also, integration was one of the worst things that could have happened to the Black community, because prior to integration, the Black dollar circulated within the Black community. Your grandparents and great grandparents under segregation were still capable of building thriving and successful Black communities. I remember I made a video about this, going over the history of white terrorism against the Black community, and where would we be today had our great grandparents and great great grandparents been left alone to build generational wealth and peace. Because the wealth gap between Blacks and whites isn't due to like what men like Ben Shapiro would like for you to believe. It isn't simply due to Black people just being lazy and incompetent and incapable of building wealth for themselves. It's because white people has been allowed to build generational wealth inside of this country for generations uninterrupted, whereas let's say our grandparents and our great grandparents, our foremothers and forefathers, had their wealthy, thriving, successful towns destroyed. Now, I don't like to talk about systemic racism when it comes to the wealth gap inside of the Black community, because the first thing it sounds like a cliche, it sounds like a lame excuse when people mention systemic racism. Because the first thing someone, let's say like Ben Shapiro, will say is, well, point to the systems, because I don't like racism and I would like to take them down with you. So what I like to do is point to physical, violent acts of terrorism that led to the destruction of wealthy and thriving communities, and compare that to where we would be today had we been left alone to build that wealth. So, for example, Seneca Village was a little town that was built shortly after slavery, after our government gave reparations to white men for loss of property, which was AKA Black people, and also gave reparations to white indentured servants. These are the so-called white slaves that white people like to try to talk about when we talk about slavery. There were no white slaves. These people were indentured servants, and indentured servitude was very common in European culture at that time, when you would volunteer to do free labor in exchange for benefits like housing or mentorship. And when they looked to Black people, they said, based off of them simply being Black, that they weren't going to get reparations the way that the white people did, that they would have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and have to build wealth themselves. And that's exactly what they did. They actually built a thriving and successful little town called Seneca Village, which would later be bulldozed to build Central Park. And this is a recurring theme throughout American history, where Black men at the time would build wealthy and thriving communities during the industrial age. And we all know about Black Wall Street, of course. And you would have angry white mobs come in to burn down and loot the homes, loot the buildings, loot the stores in these Black communities, completely destroy them out of pure jealousy. Now, there's a video on a YouTube channel, which is a historical channel. It's called Atlanta Black Star. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about it.
Subscribed.
Yeah, Atlanta Black Star. And they have a video that says, I think it's 7 successful Black neighborhoods which were destroyed by jealous white neighbors. So the primary difference, we can talk about systemic racism, but what we really need to throw in their face, because it's easy for them to deflect from systemic racism. Systemic racism is almost like our version of the boogeyman. That's in their minds, that's what they're thinking. It's like the boogeyman. You can't see him, you can't necessarily point to him.
But
So instead of trying to argue with white people about the wealth gap, the racial wealth gap, and point to systemic racism, we need to actually point to acts of terrorism which led to the wealth gap, such as them marching into Black towns and burning down and destroying and even dropping a bomb on one of them. Our own U.S. government flew over and dropped a bomb on one of these towns that led to the wealth gap.
Corianne, I was to ask you. So where'd you find this? How'd you find about this? Did you go up on the internet and you looked this up, right?
I'm a nerd. I'm summarizing years worth of research that I did on my own.
So you never mind.
Videos in the chat room that you spoke of. Please continue.
So you looked this up on the internet, right? None of this ever happened to you. You looked this up on the internet. You had to go look this up on the internet.
I see where you're going. Let me defend this, W.
Black people in 2021 can't build up their communities.
It is a 6 degrees of separation.
I'm sorry, what was this question?
His question was, it did not happen to you personally, and I know that you're probably going to allude to this,
up
but
on the internet.
Let W speak really quick.
Find this. You have to go look this up on the internet and find this. None of this ever happened to you.
Well, this is how you learn history. You learn history by researching.
Yes, but this didn't happen to you. You had to go look this. So you're using this as a reason why Black people in 2021 can't fix their own communities and build businesses and go to college and just do what they need to do for their families. You're using
Mr. W. There is systemic racism out there. Like I was saying earlier, it is very difficult to get loans. It took me going to 12 to 13 different banks to get a commercial loan. I'm not talking about a regular house loan, a commercial loan where you have to come up with 25% of the purchase price. We may not be facing what people faced back in the 60s, but we're facing stuff today. And I wanted to touch on what Mr. Research said about the EEOC cases. After I got out of the Navy, I tried joining.
Before you do that, let Yander finish her thought. And
I'm sorry, I apologize. Go ahead.
So like I said, I came into the conversation late. So this is a panel filled with Black men who are debating this on how you guys can improve your community. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, somewhat.
Coming to a point of
so
that.
This is the conversation. So Mr. W, you're talking to the other Black men on how you can improve the community.
I'm just saying, why are we using these things, right? That didn't happen to, that we have to go into. You're talking about. I never heard of this before, and you look this up on the internet, and you're using this as
you have no incentive to.
Black people just don't have.
They're not teaching it in our schools.
We don't have any interest in actually building up our own community, and you're using this as the reason that you look this up on the internet. You look this up in a book, and you're using this as a. You know how absurd this sounds? This sounds
well. I actually believe that no, I'm not using that as an excuse because I came in to give a history lesson in regards to someone saying that a lot of Black women say that Black men didn't build anything. So you're putting words in my mouth. So one of the men on the panel said that Black women say that Black men don't build anything. And I said, these women don't know history. And then I went over the history lesson of what it was that Black men built inside of the community. And then I also gave examples of how white terrorism led to the racial wealth gap and the destruction of what they built. And had they been left alone to build it, I'm talking about what led to the racial wealth gap. Had they been left alone to continue building their wealth in peace, where would we be today economically? So no, That's not an excuse. I was giving a history lesson in regards to what he said about certain people saying that Black men built nothing at all.
I think to your point, W, she's trying to suggest that in a conjunction with that other topic she said, she's trying to suggest that if they had been left alone, they would not have to constantly restart. And sometimes to your question, W, which is valid, we have to restart. 1999 is the first time we're not really being oppressed by German Shepherds, Billy Club, and 1994 Bill Clinton Biden laws. So now, yeah, we can do those things now. To your point. Sorry to interrupt you guys. I just wanted to make sure Yander said what she said to W.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree.
Quickly. But I'm still on W's side. Yander is well spoken. Mr. Research is well researched. I'm still on the side of that. At the end of the day, I understand that Black people have done a lot of things. It doesn't take away the fact of the matter, though, is that there's just no excuses. As a man, particularly, it's still seen as a form of weakness and coping, in my opinion, to say that, well, a lot happened and so this and that. For instance, if your boss has a project for you to get done by the end of the day and you don't complete the project because, I don't know, you had a legitimate complaint, your boss is going to look at you still and say, I don't want to hear any complaints. I told you to get it done, so get it done. And so to some extent, the excuses, hold on, Mr. Richards, the excuses can only go so far until he's like, you know what, I'm tired of the excuses. Now, hell, it might have been the most legitimate excuse of all time. I even remember my father, if he told me to do something and I had a legit excuse and I still didn't get it done, He would have said that's not an excuse or a reason to not fulfill what I told you to get done. And that's the end of it. And as a man, I think that still is a defining quality that is attractive to women in general. That quality of saying, you know what, I understand that it's messed up right now. I understand that a lot has happened. I understand that we've gone through a lot. But at the end of the day, baby, or for our family, for our future, for me and for you, I'm gonna make sure I can do everything humanly possible to get to the point that I need to be, irregardless of what's happened. Because what's the alternative is what W and I are saying. To do nothing.
That is disingenuous on its face. I'm going to use the same example you used, 30 seconds. If Stampus has touched that, if Yander has touched that, if Black Commander has touched that, I'm going to turn to you, boss, honest truth. You've allowed other people to stop what I started, sir.
And guess what? And Stampus, and if Stampus would have followed what y'all are saying, he wouldn't have been the CEO making 6 figures he is right now. If he would have listened to what you're saying, and that, oh, you know what, it's just too hard. The systemic racism is just too much. I'm never going to get a loan. Then he wouldn't have ever gotten a loan. He wouldn't have ever made it to the what. You know, when I was door knocking, the same story with Direct Energy. Most of the time, you're making sales. And door knocking, it comes after you've heard no a million times, and that's why sales is so difficult. Hold on, Mr. Hold on. That's why sales is so difficult, because you hear no a million times, and then when you finally hear yes, it's like, man, all right. I thought I was about to go crazy. This is why most people don't make it in sales, because it takes a certain mental side to be able to prevail over the no, negative. This is why they're always looking for salespeople, because salespeople quit 24/7. So it's hard. Yes, I mean, what do I want? What do y'all want me to say? I understand that Black people have gone through hell and back, but our ancestors didn't fight for hundreds of years, weren't hanging from trees for us to just say, you know what, to hell with it all. Their systemic racism is too much. They didn't hang from trees for Stampitis to say, you know what, I'm done trying to get these loans from banks. I'm just going to go ahead and just get a job. That's not what they fought so hard for. So to y'all, to W's defense and my defense, I see what y'all are saying, but at the same time, it's doing a disservice by still not going for everything that you can go for. Now, I want to let Black Commander speak really quickly. He hasn't talked, and then we'll let Coriander go, or W go, or whichever one of y'all want to go, and then Mr. Research, I'll let Titus go.
Actually, Sir Stampus was next. We had cut him off to go back to Yander.
Thank you, Research.
I just want to say, I feel like I side with Mr. Research a lot more. Maybe because even though I'm 31, I think I've like experienced a lot. I'll try and make it short because I do want the Black Commander to speak. After I got out of the Navy, I tried joining the California Highway Patrol, and I wanted to touch on it because I think Mr. Researcher W mentioned the EEOC and how Black people by far, especially Black men, are the #1 cases. And even when you approach the EEOC, they have a whole variety of ways to get your case like not heard. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that. As far as with what the host is saying, I do agree with him. Like, if I didn't have that mentality, if I had the mentality like most people, well, it's too hard, this, that, and the fourth, I would have gave up and I never would have got my first commercial property. But I don't want to like discredit the fact that there still is systemic racism. It is very real. And it definitely when it comes to trying to get loans, most definitely. And that's all I wanted to say. I don't want to make it long-winded. That's all I wanted to say.
Sure. Well said. Go ahead, Black Commander.
Okay. So I have listened to what you all have said, and I do see everyone's point of view. However, I think the honest truth, I think you were being a bit too dismissive of the history, like Black Americans have been through. And I need to do more research on this. However, this conversation has opened my mind to look more into the history of like the history that wasn't taught in schools and wasn't taught in, like, it wasn't taught to us as kids, of what happened to Black Americans and the discrimination that we went through in this country, right? And it's not just all blatant. Like, the government has used different ways and different angles to try to limit Black people and put them down, right? So I do understand that you're saying that nothing in the past like we didn't directly go through it in the past. Like obviously we didn't directly go through slavery. We didn't. Most of us weren't being hung right now. I mean, obviously some few elders were, but most of us were not. So I can't see what you're trying to say that we should move on and we should like fend for ourselves. However, we do have to acknowledge the past and see how families, like how experiences does affect the families in the future. Like for example, if your grandfather went through something, he probably wouldn't be able to provide for the family. Then the kids don't grow up with an education. They grow up to have higher chances of going to jail, less chances of being successful in life, etc., etc., etc. So I do think we need to be more empathetic of what happened in the past, but also be headstrong and not have a victim mindset. If that makes any sense.
I want to say something real quick. White supremacy does exist, but the thing is that we as Black people, we buy into the white supremacy. What I mean by that is when you want to shoot another Black man in the streets, you're buying into the white supremacy. When you want to finish high school, you want to drop out of high school, you're feeding into the white supremacy.
Facts.
When you want to not take care of your own child, you're feeding into the white supremacy. When you don't want to, when you want to call your own child the N-word or a dog or something like that, you're feeding into the white supremacy. When you want to twerk in front of your own child, you don't want to be a good family man to your own child. All right, you're feeding into the white supremacy. When you want to put down your own woman, when you want to talk about shooting another Black man in your own raps, you're feeding into the white supremacy.
Facts.
I 100% agree.
Oh, well said. And I want to bring something up to y'all really quickly to y'all's attention. Has anybody heard of Madam C.J. Walker?
I have.
Yes.
So Madam C.J. Walker became the first African American, the first Black millionaire in the 18s and 1900s, not 2000, not 1950, when racism was at its peak. And I mean peak, guys. We're not what we can even begin to fathom.
What none of us have never gone through. What none of us have not ever gone through.
I mean, we're talking about some truly horrific times, guys. Like really bad times. In 1905, she was 37 years old. She started a product line for dandruff. The rest is history. She used petroleum jelly sulfur. Her products are still being sold today. She's the first millionaire made in the early 1900s. So what are we really complaining about here is my thing. We're doing more of a disservice and more of a spit on the grave of the people who had success in conditions that were incomparable to what we'll ever have to experience. There's no excuse at the end of the day, guys. I hate to say it, but this is why I named the channel The Honest Truth. Coriander, I'm going to let you go really quickly after your mic has been activated.
I wanted to add on to some things. I was losing my train of thought. I was trying to keep some bullet points, right? So when I gave the history lesson, because I've given that same history lesson time and time again, but in more in depth, the takeaway from the history lesson is that, yes, you have to acknowledge what happened in the past that led to where you are today. But also, when you learn this history, you should also allow it to encourage you, because you see that your forefathers and your grandmothers were able to make amazing strides, even in the harshest of conditions. Like you said with Madam C.J. Walker, not only was she dealing with racism, she was also dealing with a highly misogynistic society as well. And it's significant that she's Black and she managed to be as successful as she was in a white supremacist society. And on top of that, she was a woman. And this was prior to, the height of the feminist movement. So it's important, it is important for you to learn your history and how you got to where you got to, because I think that a lot of our children, because I know for sure before I went into teaching myself about Black history around the world, I definitely had very low self-esteem. And that's because I had white people telling me that we were just incompetent. And how is it that all these other cultures come into this country and they surpass you and they thrive? And look at you. And I remember I used to sit there and I used to think, yeah, what the heck is wrong with us? But then I learned the history, and it instilled a sense of pride inside of me, because I'm learning that no, you're not where you're at because you're simply incompetent. You're where you're at because you had constant interference, and you should look at that history and you should allow it to encourage you, knowing that your grandfathers and your great grandfathers were able to thrive in the face of all of that adversary, to see that you do have it easier now today. And the only excuse for not thriving today, in a situation where they can't, if you were to build a thriving and successful town again, like Black Wall Street, they can't bomb it like how they bombed Black Wall Street. They can't go down and burn down and destroy your towns out of sheer jealousy like they did before. So the only thing that's standing in the way of Black people thriving today is, of course, themselves. And the fact that I believe they don't think that they can improve. Because they don't know that history, to see that their grandparents were able to do it in far worse conditions, to encourage them to do it now and today when we do have it far easier.
Well said. Very well said, Coriander. And very well
Can I
wrapped up,
chime in?
acknowledging both points.
Take our 30 seconds to say this is really important. If that Biden law had passed about cash bail, you would have had a reinvention of locking Black men up and keeping them behind bars waiting for court dates. And you guys would have saw what we were talking about. If that cash bail had went through, you wouldn't have been able to bond yourself out. You would have had to please a computer, according to Joe Biden, and that computer would have given you access to a judge who would have to appease some other federal things to allow you to come back to court. Or something back in the 80s, we used to just get a ticket for it. Come to court, appear in court. Now, if that thing had passed, you guys would have had at least 4 to 8 years of just locking people up for profit and holding in court, waiting for their actual court date. Luckily, it didn't pass. But gentlemen, you just don't understand. One little thing, according to what Yander is saying, can have you back to the Stone Age. Go ahead, gentlemen. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I wanted to say that Madam C.J. Walker, while she was exceptional, she's also like top 0.01% of human beings. Who else can achieve all that? Like with facing sexism, racism, as well as many other things, and still became a millionaire. So while her story is inspirational, it's like a rare exception. It's like using Jeff Bezos today. And Jeff Bezos does not face racism or sexism, if you know what I mean. So she's an icon to me. However, like we cannot use that as say, oh, there's no excuses, because that's just one person, like one very exceptional person. Also,
the Black Commander, I agree with you, but that doesn't mean that you can't, at least as a single Black person, you can't at least try to live like a functional life. You know what I'm saying?
No, like W, I agree with you. Like before, I was just like you. I was even more hardcore. Like I thought most Black people just had a victim mindset. Oh, always complaining, always want to be lazy, etc., etc. But that's actually playing into racial stereotypes. Because as I looked more into the history and informed myself, I saw that, like for example, what Mr. Research was saying, those things did happen. Even more that most of us don't even know today. Like that's only like what 30% of the history we actually know that happened in the U.S. because the government didn't teach us everything at school, right? So we can't always just put like a cut line and say, oh, you're lazy or you have a victim mindset, because we have to see the full picture. However, I do agree that most Black people need to like do better and think more in the future instead of in the past. Learn from the past, however, use that knowledge to motivate you and do better in the future. That's all.
May I intervene? I can't stay on for too long. So there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on. Now, like I said, yes, systemic racism plays a role as well as acts of terrorism, but also I do think today it's an issue of culture, because when I look at a lot of African Americans, right, and I understand you say that to say this is playing into racial stereotypes. When I look at a lot of African Americans, if you go to the inner cities, right, I do see that there's a lack of ambition. I do see that there's a lack of good family values and common sense, first of all, for you not to end up in that predicament in the first place with these kids born out of wedlock. And there's a lack of motivation. I see that there's glorification, and this, I don't know, maybe it has to do with them from childhood into adulthood listening to certain media like rap music that glorifies this. But there's a certain glorification of degenerate culture that's going on among African Americans. And one thing that when Black women complain to African American men, I'm speaking specifically of this particular ethnic group, when African American women complain to African American men about the what should I say, mediocrity, they do bring up systemic racism and past racism, but the rebuttal that the women resort to as well, look at the Nigerian immigrants. Now, despite their small population size inside of the United States, these Nigerian immigrants have managed to come into this country, and they're Black too, and surpass not just whites, but even Asians economically and academically inside of this nation. So then they look at their own men and they say, well, what's your excuse? If these men from this other country, Nigeria, can come in and they surpass whites and Asians, they're Black as well.
Facts. Very well said. You're right. It is a cultural problem. Go ahead.
Could I also chime in? Okay. After you, sorry, go on.
No. You can go, man.
Okay. About the Nigerian immigrant thing, you gotta realize that Nigeria is extremely competitive. Like, the immigrants who come here are very, very well equipped and well educated. Like, the schools there are cut dry. Like,
And Coriander, whenever you need to leave, if you need to go in a rush, don't worry. You can just click off whenever you want. You're always welcome, and you're always welcome to leave whenever. Go ahead, Mr. Research.
Let me say this, Coriander, before she leaves. It'll only be 30 seconds.
Okay, never mind.
W after Mr. Research, then go ahead.
30 seconds, W. I won't be long. Ms. Coriander, also understand, as you two Black folk, Commander, you have two books from Miss C.J. Walker. One is by her ancestor, and one is by a lady named Miss Green Crone. Miss Green Crone points out that Charles Walker was already an established man. He owned two news ad papers, the Denver and the St. Louis Post. Nobody tries to make Charles look better than what he is. They try to put everything on him. This isn't to diminish her. This is to say that they were a symbiont couple. The house that they started out as is actually his house. He actually lost it to her in a divorce, but it started off as his property. So we always try to demean the fact that that dude came in and bankrolled everything while she was working for that other woman who created other countries. So I do want to say that. The other thing about Nigeria, please understand, I do love how our African, Gambia, Ghana people come in and do things, but they also have to create the first Nigerian hospital because you are successful. They also got to create the first Nigerian stadium. You just can't come in as anybody, Black or white, and say, I make a good coin. The whole thing we're talking about here is being revolutionary for the sake of our children. So now that Nigerians are the most successful in the USA, we need to start seeing things built by them and created by them so that all melanated people can benefit, because we got to do more than just work for white folks. And that goes for ADOS people too.
Before you go in, I just want to say, still, even then, we're still talking about the heaviest systemic racism which the world has ever seen, Mr. Research. I did read that she was with the newspaper salesman as well. Having said that, he wasn't making anywhere near the amount of money she ended up making. And we're still talking about doing systemic racism to the max. So we're fast forwarding that today. That's no different from an athlete like LeBron, or not. Actually, that's not even the same comparison. But we have many more people who are successful today who still don't build businesses or secondary multi-million-dollar level businesses based off of the wealth that they have right now. But instead, we've seen many go broke and not start anything for themselves or the community. But I hear what you're saying, though. It wasn't just all Madam C.J. Walker. Coriander, there's a bit of feedback on your mic, so I'm going to mute you really quickly, and then I'll unmute you as soon as W gets done making his point.
Yeah, I'm Nigerian. I'm second generation Nigerian, and most of the people that after 1994, that's when they started to really use the selective immigration. Before 1994, the immigration was totally I guess anyone could come from like literally around the world and get into America before 1994. If you see the performance of Nigerians around the world, you go to UK, you go to US, you go to the Netherlands, you go to Germany, you go to New Zealand, Australia. I mean, they perform well everywhere. So it has to be a cultural issue rather than an issue of government selection or anything like that. So it can't just be, oh, these we just pick. It's not really the picking. Not each country's immigration laws are different, but but Nigerians still come up to that standard. So
and yeah, very very true. Black Commander, forgive me, I'll let you go. Mr. Research, to address your point and to follow it up further, it's still of significance because of the house that Madam C.J. Walker walked into in order for that to even begin to happen to begin with. We're talking about a man that was still, in lieu of face systemic racism to the max, had something for Madam C.J. Walker to even be able to. So it still goes back to the man at the end of the day to be able to make a way.
Very true. I mean? And to W's point, I don't think anything is in question as far as Nigerians being successful getting a bag of coins. What we're talking about as far as HT is concerned is infrastructure. So at some point in time, hopefully over the next 10 years, Nigerians will show that they're able to create infrastructure to compete against the non-blacks. We got to do more than just show that we can work for whites, work for Latino. We got to be able to build things in competition to them. That's my point.
I agree, and I think that's going to happen within once you see this immigrant crop, this new immigrant crop, the second generations established, high-end businesses. I think that if Black people really want to succeed in America, then it's going to be us on creating businesses specifically in technology. We need to go to school specifically for technology, not get stupid degrees and then come back, work for companies, and then build companies in the technology space in our own communities. But our own communities may lack a lot of the social capital to make these type of businesses really productive, because many of us just really don't have those type of skills.
Let me also say W, you and Commander will acknowledge that prior to 1994, we had so many union jobs here. You guys wouldn't have been able to just come in a contract. People who had union jobs would have fought against that. So you guys came in when Bill Clinton destroyed the last of the union jobs that Reagan started. So it was set up to help immigrants come in and have contract work, which you wouldn't have been able to get if unions were still the powerhouse that Clinton destroyed. But go ahead, sir.
Okay, so I was in the US for 2 years. That was like 2012. But also, I wanted to chime in and say, why would Nigerians be expected, or what loyalty do they have to build, to start companies and businesses for America when they have family in Nigeria? Wouldn't it make more sense to help your family in Nigeria than just friends in America, right?
Them here, but at least go start them in Nigeria, because right now you got the free trade. You're about to give away stuff to the Arab nation and China, just to replace the British who screwed all of Africa over in 1771. So my whole point is, take away the cocoa, take away everything you're exporting for them in an effort to make a coin, and create your own Africa cocoa, Africa coffee. Create that with all this good success that you've had abroad.
You are right. You're 100% right. And I think Nigeria has no excuses anymore.
Yeah,
we should actually
be a point as well she'd like to make.
Okay. Go on.
I was going to say that, and then what he said about China just dawned on me. So when you were talking about it's not enough for them to show that they have coin, like they're surpassing Asians and whites inside of the United States economically, they should also build. I was also going to say, well, why should they build in the United States rather than doing what I see a lot of Latin American immigrants doing? And doing what I see a lot of Latin American immigrants doing and actually taking their wealth from this country, since the dollar is more than whatever currency they're using in Nigeria, and build in Nigeria using the currency that they have here. And then when they touched on China, um, I don't think a lot of African leaders have the gift of foresight, because what they suffer from, which is something I see that spills over into Blacks in the diaspora, is that they lack the gift of foresight. Why would you sign a contract with any foreign entity that states that in the event that you can't pay your debt to them, in the event that you can't pay your debt to them, that they own a piece of this land? So these people are basically colonizing Africa, but legally. You're basically putting it in their hands, because you know that you can't pay back the loans that these people are giving you for infrastructure. You're trading. The Chinese are getting way more out of this than the Africans, because you're trading infrastructure for resources, and then on top of giving them your resources, you've signed a contract that said that if you can't pay them back for the loans that they've given you for the infrastructure that they've built, that they now have land. So they have resources and land from you. So I don't think that the African men inside of Africa don't necessarily have all of their screws tight enough to not fall for this again.
They do. They do.
And really
They
quickly,
just don't
sorry, guys.
care.
W, if you're trying to rejoin, you got to turn your mic on. It won't let me let you join. Go ahead, guys. My apologies.
Speak on it, Yan. Speak on it.
So I was saying they do. However, the leaders don't care. Most of them are corrupt, greedy, stingy. That's how it is so far. If we have better leaders, we would actually be a world power right now, I think.
Well, hold on, Black Commander. Don't we need the successful Nigerians to come back and be the leaders?
Sure, we do, and many do come back. However, the power structure in Nigeria and Ghana and South Africa and all these countries are different from the States, right? Like it's a long topic to talk about today, but there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of cheating, there's a lot of greed, all that. So that's why the president or the leaders want money. So they sign contracts with China, with Arab states, Syria, all that, so they can get money right now. However, they don't care about the future. As long as their family is good, that's all that matters to them. That's one huge problem we have in Nigeria and Ghana and all that.
And this speaks to the divisiveness in Black culture. And I'm not saying that white people didn't go to war over the Crusades with other white people and this and that, but at the end of the day, the facts are still the facts. The ranks of race go from white to Asian to Latino to Black, and then all the other subsects mixed in between. And we can argue that as much as we want to, but we're at the bottom.
Let me ask you this question, honest truth. Did Africa ever get any swords from what Yander was talking about? Did they ever get any armor? Were they ever taught to how to sail those ships in the Ivory Coast that they paid for?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, to be completely honest with you, but I can tell you this much. I can tell you that at the end of the day, white people were the ones that took over the world and Black people weren't. So that doesn't answer your question, but I think that there's a lot to identify in that statement. No matter what we want to say at this point, it still doesn't take away from the fact. Go ahead, W.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, they took over the world.
I'll say this, because the world was up for grabs at one point or another. Everybody was stuck on one piece of the continent, on their portion of the world, and at some point or another, the game started, and it ended with white people dominating and making this entire planet theirs, as far as economically. And I'm not saying that they own the planet, obviously not, because they're different countries and stuff. But y'all get what I mean. The American dollar is the strongest currency. Well, how did that come to be? Well, currency had to be invented. Who identified or made the means of currency? Now, we could take it from the holistic perspective and say, well, it was evil for them to do this, and it was evil for the white people to put Black people in slaves, and it was evil for this, and it was evil for that. And yeah, it was. That still doesn't take away from the fact that by and large, and because I know people get hung up on not everybody's like that. By and large, they took this thing over. They conquered.
Hold on. Let me ask this question to you and to Black Commander and even W. Didn't Gaddafi, and I think Yander will back me up, didn't Gaddafi want to create the first Black African bank, and Hillary Clinton killed him for it? She claimed that he was abusing his people. It was her second war within 2 years, because she just finished having a war over in Egypt to take that guy out. Didn't she say he was abusing his people? She killed the guy because he was about to create a pipeline with Georgia, which is part of Lower Russia. And then Arabs started enslaving the Black people there, and nobody said nothing.
Go ahead. I'll let Yander answer, and then I'll give you my answer.
So we've always had Black people trying to do stuff, but then they don't get protected. Speak to that.
I actually studied this, so like I said, I'm a huge history nerd. So I actually remember when white people were trying to deflect from this. I remember when people were trying to paint Gaddafi as a terrorist, and there were Black people inside of their spaces talking about how the reason why the United States is really after his head is because he wanted to create a single gold-backed African currency for the entirety of the continent. Now, this was going to pose not just issues for the United States, which would collapse the U.S. dollar. You know, anything that threatens the U.S. dollar has to be stopped immediately. But also European countries like France, who still rely on Africans, still crippling them economically through making them pay ridiculous tax. And I do mean, like, I'm not sure if you guys have heard of the tax for reparations for slavery. Yeah, the Africans are paying the French taxes for the benefit of slavery. So,
no. We gotta let W speak on that.
Yeah, they assassinated him to prevent him from going through with creating a single gold-backed African currency that would rival the U.S. dollar, and would actually turn the economic power on the world stage to Africa. So I remember we were talking about that inside of some pro-Black spaces when I was going through my Hotep phase. That was a phase.
Yeah, I'll let W go ahead.
I'm why they were launching this campaign against his image. So yeah, I just want to elaborate.
Hold on, Mr. Research. I'm gonna let W go ahead and answer really quickly.
I'm a comment on that real quick. That was again the Western world trying to impose its will on the rest of the world, right? That's just them doing that's just the Western world trying to impose its will on the rest of the Middle East and Africa.
But I thought you said that's not happening. I thought you said those things are not happening.
That's how they keep power, though. That's the point.
America.
No matter how immoral it is, that's how they keep power.
I'm talking about America, not Africa and global politics. I mean, again, that was a UN effort, so it wasn't just the Europeans that were all in it. It was African nations that were in on it too.
But you have to acknowledge that
it was a UN effort.
Do you think it would be different if this was happening in America? Do you think that the U.S. wouldn't want to also stop like a Black rising or some way that Black people would have more power than whites, or at least improve themselves? Don't you think that U.S. would also be against that as well?
Why wouldn't they want us to be successful now?
Like, why wouldn't they want Gaddafi to be successful?
I'd say.
Why would they ever want us to be successful?
No, because why would they want us to be? Because right now they think of us as a plague. They think of us as just leechers. Why? I mean, we're more of a negative to the country than a positive to the country.
No, but if we were successful, we would actually be a rival against them. So of course they'd rather have us weakened and be a plague than actually be a rival or
Look,
be.
If we were a rival against
them,
if we were a rival against them, we would all be working together then.
Huh?
We would all. I think then we would all.
I'm saying that
working together would be a positive for all of us.
I'm saying if we were all united and successful, we would be a bigger threat to them than how we are right now, obviously. So, which would they rather have? A stronger rival or opponent, or someone just weakened who is dragging along with you? Obviously, you would choose the second option because that's less of a threat to you.
If Black people were united then nothing can stop us. And I don't understand. There's nothing that would no external force would be able to stop us then.
Go ahead, Coriander.
To touch on what the Black Commander said, you guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I agree with what he said about them rather having you depend on them than to be a direct rival to them. Because if you look throughout history, another history lesson, the U.S. government to control populations of color actually infantilized those people. Meaning they broke them down to make them depend on the government so that they can have more control over these people. For example, with the indigenous people, the Native Americans, the U.S. government destroyed all of their buffalo. I remember this. I remember the picture, and they had a huge mountain of burnt buffalo, so that the indigenous people can become more reliant upon the U.S. government. And infantilizing a group of people is a method of controlling them, so that they don't rival you, so that they lose their independence and they have to depend on you, so that everything that they have, it has to come through you first, so you control. What's the word I'm looking for?
You're right, 100%.
So, help me out.
Resources.
Okay.
But you control the, I don't want to say status. See, I had the word, but you get it.
Outcomes.
Outcome, like their results, basically.
So you control the resources essentially, and yeah. So I definitely hear that. I hear both sides. I really do, and
Could I
I want to
chime
make
in?
sure that everybody always
Go on,
has the
sir.
chance to give their sides, to give their interpretation.
But
However,
all I say, give us 8 years on the African side and the ADOS side. We should have changed, because for the first time, we're not being messed with. If that policy had passed on cash bail, you two gentlemen would have been subject to being held under false claims, rotting away in a jail, waiting for your court date, because it would be the policy of the land. You guys haven't been through that type of stuff, so you don't know that type of stuff exists. So I understand in 1999, 2000, you're saying, well, why can't we get it together? All I'm suggesting is, gentlemen, this level of black is brand new. Brand new. Give it a little bit of time before you.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Research. I completely agree that if that had passed, it would have been a horrible thing for black people, a horrible thing. And so if that had passed, then what?
What
then
what's the specific policy? I don't know really.
Yeah, well, see, that's another thing, W. I just like Miss Yander, respectfully, I want you to get a good history on policy, and because those things are prevalent, you don't see those things, and so therefore you don't know they exist. So the policy was called cash bail. It was Biden's plan before he got his vice presidency. A lot of people don't know that. I'm a very researched person. Biden came out with the plan that if you got arrested, okay, you were to be held in jail, and bail bondsmen would have went away. If you had $5,000 to bail yourself out, you couldn't use it. That was about to be a law, gentlemen. Go look it up.
Mr. Research, here's my rebuttal to this.
Biden is a white supremacist. Biden is a white supremacist. So I don't know why black people were so. I don't know how. I mean,
and that's my point right there. I said you would be hard pressed to convince most black people, Mr. Research. You know that they'd call you worse things that they call me if you try and convince most black people that the Democrat isn't really the party that's for them whatsoever. If you try to teach black people, you know how hard it would be to teach black people that. Now, why do you think that is?
I represent you guys. I go into white spaces on behalf of black people and say these things to white people. I'm not one of these people that hide out in black spaces. I go into white space and I force white people to get very quiet when they speak to me, because they know what I'm saying.
Now, Mr. Research, you're in the space to where we hear you, and I'm completely agreeing with you that that'd have been a horrible thing. But the fact of the matter is, most spaces aren't like this space here, where we have rationale thinking and accept outside informational sources or accept wisdom where it is. That's not the group of people that follow in that riot in the streets for Kevin Samuels and Jessica X. Those people, you'd be hard pressed to try and say the very same thing you're saying, to speak against their Lord and Savior, Joe Biden and Kamala. They would treat you as if you were calling them every curse word a book and threatening
They'll
to kill
call you
them.
a coon. They'll call you a sellout. They'll call you all that.
They would call you this and that. These are the same people that claim that Black Lives Matter. These are the same people that are out there rioting and burning down cities on behalf of George Floyd. And I'm not saying George Floyd obviously wasn't a horrendous situation. Please don't misconstrue my words. I'm saying that the same very thing that you're saying, in essence, is what I'm saying, is that the wisdom that you have will fall on deaf ears to the very people that you're trying to prove that you're fighting for. You see what I mean? It's a cognitive dissonance almost. And I know you can agree with it to some extent, and I'll let you go after Coriander speaks. Go ahead, Coriander.
Let me say something. How could Black people be so stupid to vote in the guy who treats them like a lapdog, who fucking is he says he's going to legalize 11 million immigrants into America, illegal immigrants. He's going to give them amnesty, which is going to take away from Black wages, undercut our wages, right? He's not going to do a single thing for us. And we were the ones who voted him in. We Black Americans were the ones who voted him in, and we aren't going to get shit. He treated us like lapdogs when the civil rights leaders went to go talk to him. Hey, you're gonna have to go with that plan, our plan, right? Because they're gonna be the majority and shit. He treated them like fucking lapdogs.
Facts. Yeah. Go ahead, Coriander.
The answer to that is foolishness. I'm going to go out here, and when I say these things, people get angry at me, but the average African American is not a very deep thinker, unfortunately. And to them, if the racism isn't blatant and in your face, and if they aren't calling you a nigger, then it's not racism, and they don't pay attention to more subtle forms of racism that take place in the Democratic Party by the Democrats. Now, I didn't vote at all because I didn't support either of them, But you said, how is it that they can vote for them knowing these policies? They don't know these policies. They didn't do their research. A lot of them, they vote based off of instinct. And the Democratic Party, they know this. They know Black people don't do their research, which is why they had someone try to get them to speak to someone like Cardi B, which was an insult to the intelligence of the African American community, because they know that they like Cardi B, and if I talk to her and they think that she's cool, then they'll vote for me. They're not even sitting here trying to have a real conversation with you. They're trying to appease to your emotions, because as a matter of fact, they think that you're too unintelligent to sit down and have a logical conversation about policy. And African Americans have proven this because the racism in the Democratic Party isn't as blatant and in your face as the racism in the Republican Party with Donald Trump. They voted for Biden thinking he was the lesser of two evils. Now, to be honest, I really rather see the snake in the grass, or I really rather see the animal that's about to bite me than to be surprised by a snake in the grass, or to be tricked by a wolf in sheep's clothing. I'd rather have someone who's an idiot and screams to the rooftops, letting you see their bigotry, than to have someone smile in my face and then do underhanded things to me and the community under the guise of being progressive or for you. Those types of enemies are more dangerous than the villains who scream from the rooftop that they are the villain. So
I agree.
But it was nice talking to you guys.
It's always a pleasure, Coriander, to have your wisdom and input on here. We all appreciate you.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey,
good having you.
My page and do some of that nerd history stuff. I love it.
Can I say something?
Okay. Really
could I chime in also?
There's a panel of Black men who have these conversations, because I'm used to seeing just a whole lot of buffoonery going on in the manosphere.
My page is very controlled.
Yeah.
In the manosphere, and I said these conversations are not productive. I don't see much introspection going on over there with the men, and you can't improve upon yourself if you refuse to look in the mirror and see that there are things that need to be improved upon. And I don't see much introspection going on over there. So this was very refreshing. I'm going to go. Thank you very much.
Always an honor, Coriander. Take care. Okay.
Bye.
I want to say thank you. I want to say one thing about BLM. BLM is just another organization that's there to it's a self-righteous movement for white liberals to just make themselves feel better in the face of self-righteousness and to and this quest for cosmic justice to I guess alleviate their guilt and to they don't really care about black people. It's just and they're just doing this for their own self-righteousness, right? It's an animal rights campaign, and they treat black people like children, and they're using this as and many people are using this as a guise to get an ulterior motive. They don't really care about black people. They're just using this in the name of self-righteousness. That's what this whole Black Lives Matter movement really was.
Well, W, I want to say something. I partially agree and I partially disagree, and here's why. This is where this gets really tricky, because there were white people that helped slaves escape in the Underground Railroad. Make no mistake about it.
Absolutely.
There were good white people, and even in today's society, there are still good white people who are of, solid constitute. Now, the problem ends up being is that it's hard to kind of distinguish the good white people from the bad white people. And so while you're absolutely correct with the entire politicization of Black Lives Matter and the different political sides of it, what happens is that the good white people end up looking at a group like Black Lives Matter and saying, well, I've always treated every black person well. I've always been nice to black people. I've never said anything wrong about black people. My family loves black people. I have black friends, especially particularly with the Zoomers and Gen Z and the new, generation of kids. They don't see racism nearly to the point to where, Mr. Research and Mr. Research is probably a different generation, but you understand what I'm saying. Racism is slowly dwindled a bit. I know it's never going to fully go away. That's just human nature. But
1999. There
you go. But at the same token, when you have white people who are like, I've never seen black people as less than me. I like black people. And then they really start to analyze black people and say, well, you know what? Black people don't even like black people because they're the ones killing each other and this and that. Then Black Lives Matter and then black on black crime begins to even turn the good white people into seeing black people as less than. So it's like a double entendre there. It's a two-headed sword where Black Lives Matter can do bad for good white people. It could do bad for bad white people and for good and bad black people. It has so many different facets and layers to it that it can, I guess you could say, change, essentially, for lack of a better term, if y'all understand what I mean. So it's supposed to be a good political organization, but when a white person sees black people burning down Minneapolis, they're going to be like, well, you know what? I don't know how I feel about black people anymore because I treated y'all good and you're burning down my city. and so there's so many different layers to it.
Also, after you, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to say that the Biden administration didn't even try to get the black vote this year. They already knew that they were going to get the black vote. They saw us as stupid children, basically. You can tell because when they interviewed Cardi B, of all people, was to represent the average black person.
And I made a video on that ignorance as well. That was just a slap in the face for every black person on the face of the planet, and Negroids celebrated. Go ahead.
It's embarrassing. It's absolutely it's like that. They don't even try anymore.
Sorry,
they already have the black vote, regardless of what happens. But go on.
I don't want to. Sorry, I don't want. I have a friend who works for the campaign, and every time I tell him the truth about the Biden administration, he doesn't respond at all.
Yeah, that tells you what you need to know. But also,
it's one of those things where it's like I understand, that Trump obviously had a lot of bad policies, he's done a lot of bad things, whatever it might be, and this and that. But like Coriander said, it was tough. I didn't vote for this time at all either. And I know people are gonna be like, "Well, you're doing more harm than good." It's just I didn't. We said, go ahead.
No. You know what, gentlemen? I understand what your position on these things. I just encourage us to be more historians in our opinions, because some of your things come from some of your things come from your present day understanding of how things are, and you don't have any forethought to 10 years ago. 10 years ago has an effect. 20 years ago has an effect. Maybe not 30 and 40 years. I'll give you that. But 10 and 20 years definitely has an effect. And it's kind of like when I hear people blame Obama for stuff, and I'm like, well, do you not know that Dick Cheney gave away all that money to his old company, Halliburton, with no compete contracts? What do you say about that? Oh, well, that doesn't matter. Sir, he drained the entire country and gave it back to his former company. You guys don't have a problem with that? So sometimes when we have these theoretical things, I just want us to be more versed on maybe possibly why things are the way they are. Black Commander has pointed that out a couple of times. You got to know some of this history.
So
Go ahead.
So basically, let's look at the full story. I think the honest truth and W, I think you guys are only seeing maybe half or 30% of the story. Let's try to look at the full story and then understand what happened and where we can go from there, instead of just having a negative outlook on Black people in general and kind of blaming each other for things. Yes, we need to improve, we need to move forward. However, let's understand what happened and why we are in the situation we are.
I agree. Very well said, Black Commander. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Coriander wanted to leave a comment saying this is a panel of truly high-value Black men talking about how men can improve the Black community, and it was actually very refreshing. I felt like I was in the presence of real men on this panel, and that's what we aspire to do. I'm sure all of the guys here can attest to that statement as well. That's what we aspire to do, is to inspire and to get people to understand that even in disagreement, as long as you're talking about the benefit of a certain populace or population or community, then disagreement even has a place. And what we'll do in the future is we'll take the disagreements we have and continue to ponder on them, continue to find what we can agree or agree to disagree with, and how each side of those disagreements or agreements are special or have a place in the Black community as far as our growth. And so I really want to thank y'all, Mr. Research. I'll go ahead and let everybody have one last word, starting from Research, then Stampitis, in order as you appear on stream, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Go ahead, Mr. Research.
All right, sorry. So here's my final thoughts, gentlemen. Thank you for wanting the best for us, but let's keep that same energy, because what ends up happening, like I did mention that cash bail policy, many of you didn't even know that was even on the table. If it had a pass, you would have had the effects of it. You'd have been like, well, officer, I'm showing you my license. Why am I being arrested? Sir, step out your car. This doesn't even make sense. Then you get in the system and you realize it's all in an effort to hold you for $125 a day. Now it's too late to say that ain't right, because that's policy now. And it may take 8 years, like it did Bill Clinton, to undo some of that stuff. But by that time, you've already been affected. Honest Truth has been arrested 8 times, and now the job he was going to get is looking at him funny because he's gotten arrested 8 times, even though he have no convictions. Let me say it again. He's got arrested 8 times, but he has no convictions. He's in the middle of a policy that he didn't realize Mr. Research and people like him were going through.
Definitely, Mr. Research, and we're going to cover that. We're going to cover that on next stream, and I'm going to make that another separate stream. In the effort to wrap this up, I'll have to cut short. But yeah, he has a lot of good stuff to say. He's very right. He's very right. And that's something that we as a people need to start attesting.